Good evening. It's 6 p.m. I am Mayor Julia Johnson. I'm going to call this City Council meeting to order. Will you please stand with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. Before I begin roll call, I want to mention that Joe Burns called, and he has a family situation that has arose, and he has asked to be excused. So if there are not any issues with it, we'll excuse Councilman Burns for the evening. Now I am looking at item D, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
you.
Madam Mayor.
Okay. So I have a motion by Councilman Cox, second by Councilman Lavaca. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item E, the consent agenda, items 1 through 5. Do I have a motion?
Mayor Johnson, I'll make a motion for the consent agenda, and I'd like to pull item 4 and put that under new business, please.
Okay. All right. So I have a motion by Councilman Henderson. Do I have a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilman Henderson, second by Councilwoman Diamond. At the request of Councilman Henderson, we're going to pull item 4, place it on new business. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Perfect, motion carry. I'm going to move this over so we have it. Okay, and I see that they are here tonight, so there'll be that opportunity to have that discussion with them too, if you so choose. All right, now we're going to move on to special guest and presentation. So tonight we have North Star George Kosovic and Director of Strategic Initiatives Monica Negrelia, and they're going to be talking about the opioid settlement funding. So welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, and good evening, members of the council. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. Thank you, Woody, for your help with the slides. Next slide, please. So tonight, council members, we are here because we would like to seek your direction in a proposed regional collaboration utilizing opioid settlement funds. Next slide, please. So we are hoping to start with a brief background of the opioid settlement funds, followed by our proposed projects under the North Star Initiative, and then followed by a discussion. We are hoping for your direction and next steps. And then at the end, we are hoping to end with just a couple of North Star related updates and reminders. Next slide, please. So with that, starting a little bit with a brief background on the opioid settlement funds. These originated from legal action against manufacturers and distributors of opiates for their role in the opioid crisis. Lawsuits and legal action began in around 2018, and since then that resulted in multiple major settlements, some of which are still in process today. But we do have some settlements that have occurred over the last few years and some significant dollars in our region that we hope we can discuss on how to best use. Next slide, please. So to date, and actually to date with an asterisk, the numbers that you're going to see presented today are recent as early as June of this year, 2025. Since then, a new settlement has taken place with Purdue Pharma. And so those numbers are not going to be reflected in the presentation tonight. But to date, in our region, in our county, that includes among all of our jurisdictions, cities and county together, a total of $2.6 million have been brought into the region from the 8 different settlements. This is just part of the money that is scheduled to be in the region. Totally today, we have scheduled about $8.25 million. And again, that does not include the most recent settlements and any future settlements. So funds may be used for opiate abatement and recovery efforts. And next slide, please. And so with that, just continuing a little bit on the background, I believe that this discussion is not really the first time that is in front of you. There has been some initial collaboration and discussion in early 2023 and 2024. And also most recently, some of you have been part of the North Star joint meeting of the city councils, mayors, and county commissioners in early June, the North Star Symposium, where we had initial conversation on interest in possible regional collaboration, and we also had great conversation on possible priorities at that time. Next slide, please. So based on that brief background, moving into what we would like to propose to you tonight, our hope is with having that regional aspect and that collective action in mind, knowing and recognizing that we can do so much more if we work together rather than if we all choose to work individually. Our proposal really focuses on that regional collaboration, but also we recognize that you have also individual needs in your communities and that you would perhaps prefer to use at least part of those funds for your individual cities. So the proposal tonight offers an option that focuses on the regional investments, but also provides for some individual approaches if you choose so. And then we also tried to use your input from the meeting in June, and we used the prioritization that was discussed at that time to put together the proposal tonight. So next slide, please. And so with that, what you see on the screen and what we would like to discuss in more depth tonight is using that total of $2.6 million that I mentioned earlier and splitting it into an 80-20 proposal where 80% of those funds could be used for regional projects and 20 would stay with each jurisdictions. This is just a proposal and we would love to hear direction and reactions to that. And then we identified the priorities being the major one being the Star Center, which is located here in your area, and we would like to propose a one-time funding use for startup funds for the Star Center. I'm going to invite George in a couple of minutes. He's going to provide more information on that. And then the next priorities are for your consideration to use expansion for recovery housing, which in essence are clean and sober housing that is much needed in our community. And then also bridge housing, which is a need that we keep hearing from our partners in community court and first responders. And again, I'm gonna let George talk about that in just a couple of minutes. What you also see on the screen is a visual of how the funding is broken down between each of the jurisdictions and how much of that $2.6 million I mentioned earlier is received by each of the jurisdictions. So next slide, please. And this is where I'm going to pause, and I'm going to invite George to dive deeper into the numbers. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. As she mentioned, George Kosovich. I work at Skagit County Public Health. I'm just going to walk through a little bit more detail on the proposed investments, what they are, kind of some of the investment amounts, some budget pieces along with that, and then some expected outcomes. We're having these discussions with all 4 city councils. We're actually going to go to Mount Vernon tonight, Burlington tomorrow, and Anacortes on Monday. And what we've tried to do in consultation with you all through the joint meetings, through engagement from the mayors, is come up with kind of the benefit you get of pooling funds together to make some things happen that wouldn't otherwise happen if you're on your own. And as Monica said, listening to those priorities and leaving some flexibility for the cities so you have kind of that discretionary fund to use as well. So that's what we're going to walk through. In terms of the categories up there, as she mentioned, we have kind of a 2-year category bucket, some programs that would be starting up that would require some ongoing funding, and then a one-time category for the Star Center. And so when we show you the numbers, you'll see, hopefully it'll be clear how they break down, but really for the bridge housing and recovery housing, seeing that those would be kind of new startup housing programs, wanting to make sure that they were in place for a 2-year period. That first category of bridge housing is actually connected to the Star Center as well. So one of the things we've identified as a need is that we have a lot of people that go to detox or that transition out of the jail or involved in community court have detoxed from the substance they're on, but they don't have a treatment bed available. And so there's a period of time where you have a moment of clarity, but you're released back either into homelessness or the condition you came from, and that's a real challenge. So what we've identified here, and we're calling bridge housing, is really a short-term housing model for people that are getting out of treatment, waiting on that next treatment step. And so that's that first piece. The next piece is, as Monica mentioned, recovery housing. We have some great recovery houses, which, as she said, are kind of clean and sober models, transitional housing for folks, but there's not enough capacity. So in Skagit County, we have 9. There are also some Oxford houses. They're typically full. Data show that we need probably an additional couple hundred in Skagit County. This would be a start to adding some of that capacity. And then I think you all are quite familiar with the Star Center. Here, what we've been looking for, and we've gone to the legislature and been partially successful. We've been knocking on every funder's doors and think this is an opportunity. It's really startup capital for that Star Center to make sure they open fully staffed. It's really a new medical office building, a 17,000 square foot building, 48 beds, 75 employees, and they need that startup capital to open from day one with that ready to serve the community, ready to serve first responder drop-offs and walk-ins needing help. So that's kind of what they are. If we go to the next slide, we've got a little bit of the math behind this and what we would expect in terms of service numbers. So for those, again, the first bucket of categories are 2-year amounts. So bridge housing isn't particularly expensive. It would be kind of a pilot program serving people for that 2-week period. And we think in conversations with providers that we could serve 25 folks. The real goal of this is to make sure people make it to that next step of treatment, that they don't fall through the cracks. And so when we talk about results, we're talking about reducing the number of OD risks and increasing the likelihood that people make it through that inpatient treatment. For recovery housing, this is a transitional period, so it's a longer term focus, typically up to 12 months, with lots of structure and accountability. And here, we have some history in our county contracting with recovery housing providers. Oftentimes they'll lease a space, sometimes it's new construction. But here the goal is that people maintain their recovery and their housing stability and make it to permanent housing. And we think we could add, just kind of based on history, 25 or 30 beds with that funding amount. We'd likely do an RFP out to the community to make that happen. In terms of the Star Center startup, what we're looking for in terms of that gap is an additional $1.5 million for that startup. Again, this is a $12 million annual operating budget for the facility, 75 employees, so full startup operation. And out of that, that's going to result in 17,000 bed nights of crisis stabilization, detox, and treatment capacity. Really, with the goals that we'll be tracking out of that are how many people did we divert from a more costly ER option, from jail, and then some measures around improved health and well-being, actually making it through that treatment. If we go to the next slide, this gets into a little bit more of a complicated spreadsheet look of things. It's the same idea, just taking those numbers and dividing them between the Skagit County portion and the city portion. So as Monica mentioned, through June 30th, we'd have collectively about $2.6 million in the bank. The Unfortunately, the way the settlement works is it's this complicated payment schedule that goes over 17 years. We have 8 settlements. They all pay on slightly different pay schedules. I would just say that a lot of it's front-loaded. So we've received about a third of the settlements already in the bank, and it decreases over time. And so one of the things we want to make sure we're keeping an eye on is kind of that sustainability, because there is that more front-loaded expense. And that's one of the reasons that investing in the Star Center is kind of attractive, because it really is a one-time startup use and doesn't require ongoing funding. So that would be that first piece of $1 million from the county, $500 from the city combined for that $1.5 million. As Monica mentioned, in this model, we've set aside 20%, kind of just as a holdback for the cities to spend however they like for their local needs. And then layering in, kind of using round numbers, the idea of detox bridge housing and recovery housing at $150,000 and $650,000, that being a two-year total, leaving a little bit left over kind of for rounding. In this case, for the county portion, we didn't hold back any portion. I think that's available for future projects or other uses. So it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle working with 4 cities to make this work. And we think kind of we've heard kind of positive feedback about these 3 different categories, meaning the Star Center, bridge housing, and recovery housing. And now it's kind of putting that on paper to see what does it actually look like. If you go one more slide, we'll break it down from one bucket for all the city categories to then looking at the individual cities. And you can see the amount available that corresponds back to that pie chart that Monica showed from the beginning, how much we would allocate under this methodology, and then the amount that would remain. And as Monica said, this doesn't include the newest settlements. We've asked the AG's office, hey, what's the estimate? They're not quite telling us. I've done the math, and I think it could be as much as another $1 million collectively for our county, but don't take that to the bank yet until it all shakes out through the settlement agreements. But this is what it looks like. You can see for Sedro-Woolley up there, through June 30th, received about $105,000, and how that would allocate out with the amount remaining. Again, with more money coming. So I think I'm going to invite Monica back up here to kind of walk through some options and then get into discussion with you all.
Thank you, George. And before we move to the next slide, one more detail that I may want to add is, since all these numbers are as of June 30th, the actual numbers in your bank account might look different just because you might have received some numbers. So if I know some of you might, looking at Charlie, you might do the math. You're like, I think we have more in the account. And so that's why I think you might have just received some numbers. So with that, next slide, please. And so this concludes the portion of our presentations. Some of the options that we would like to propose for you tonight is either just approve what we are proposing, or we would love your feedback, your direction in proposing something different, perhaps proposing a different formula if that doesn't work, or a different priority. We would just love your input and direction. And with that, next slide, please. The specific questions that we have for you tonight are you supportive of the 3 proposed areas, the Star Center, the bridge housing and recovery housing? Are there alternative directions that you would like us to take, or priorities that you have that you recommend? And then the same with the formula, the 80-20 formula. How does that feel for all of you? So we are going to pause here for conversation.
We do. We have one right now. Councilman Koch?
Yes, thank you for the excellent presentation. I think I'm a strong proponent of the Star Center. It's right here. It essentially replaces Pioneer Center North, so without that in our community, we'll be hurting. I did have a question about the bridge housing and the recovery housing. There are several, I guess not a lot, of providers. They're nonprofit. There might be even a few for-profit. Would it be, instead of doing it our own, would it be more useful or a better use of the money to partner with those groups. So, for example, they could expand what they already know they're doing, and that way the money will be, it would be multiplied.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Councilmember Koch. Absolutely, I think that would be our intent, to partner with one of those organizations instead of reinventing the wheel. Probably we will issue a request for proposals and just partner with one of them. They already know how to do it, and it would be also a quicker process. So yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Hey, Councilwoman Kesty?
Thank you. Although I respect what you guys are trying to do, I personally disagree with North Star. I think you're a middleman, and I very much would rather cut the check to the Star Center ourselves. And I disagree with the way that you guys approach the bridge housing and recovery housing and low barrier and different things. So I would rather, like I said, cut the check to the entities myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. So who owns the Star Center? Who does it belong to?
So the county.
The county?
Yeah,
Okay.
we own the building.
And then the health department runs it, or will be responsible for running it?
It'll be run by a nonprofit provider, Pioneer Human Services.
Okay. And so you said $12 million per year, and you need 1.5, right, for startup? So can you present us with like a sustainability model for keeping that center running?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd be happy to provide kind of an operating budget. That's something we've asked for from the provider and have, so happy to share it.
And so the county is going to be paying that $12 million year after year to keep it going?
No. So the main source of funding is through insurance billing. And really the goal is to get to break even for the nonprofit provider within that first year of operations. It's kind of consistent with how it operates in other places like Spokane. What they've really highlighted is it's that first 9 months of operations where it's hard for a nonprofit to come up with the capital to float for a new startup enterprise. And so that's really what we've been trying to rally support for.
Yeah. Like hiring the staff, training staff, and then implementing their structures to start billing. While they also see clients, that's the part that they need support with.
Okay, Councilwoman Diamond?
How much of the 80% actually goes to administrative costs of North Star as a whole?
We haven't built in any administrative costs here. So our intent is it would all go to the providers. And in fact, we haven't talked about contracting models, but I think our preference would be that the cities contract directly with like the Star Center. So the county doesn't need to be in the middle of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councilman LaVaca?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So you're in this presentation, and thank you for it, by the way. You said we can get 25 beds for 2 years at 2 weeks each, so 25 times 26. Is that correct?
Yeah.
For $150,000 for 2 years. Wow. How do you do that?
So there are two things that we have in mind. One is to actually contract with the detox provider and kind of pay them their nightly rate. So they bill Medicaid for detox, but there's a point where it's not medically necessary. They can't just hold the bed. And so that's kind of one option we've talked to them about. A second option would be to work with a recovery housing provider and set aside kind of beds on an as-need basis, kind of buy out their bed night for folks who are exiting detox without someplace to go.
Is that a reality where we've had discussions to do, or so it is? All right.
Yeah.
And then what about the 800,000 for 25 beds for 25 to 30 people for 2 years, right after that?
Yeah. So the transitional is just to be real clear. The bridge housing is super short term, so that'd be like
2 weeks.
a 2-week stay. For recovery housing, typically folks will stay months or up to a year in a transitional program, and kind of the costs that we've seen, it depends on the size of the house and do they have a mortgage and all of those things, but runs anywhere between $7,000 and $10,000 for the whole year. And so that's kind of how we came up with the estimates for service numbers, is just based on that history.
Well, I mean, the bed per dollar numbers are pretty amazing, to tell you the truth, for actually getting a bed and what would be going into that. And then our cost is obviously 80,000, 81,000, something like that. And then the 17,000 beds at the Star unit per year, how soon will that be up and running?
Early next year, the latest construction estimate is February 1st.
Construction would be February 1st, and then the finished part would be?
Open for business February 1st.
Oh,
is what
open
we
for
should-
business, okay, yeah, I know, I've been asked about that a lot. And then you guys are pretty close to meeting your goal, or heavily dependent on the funding from the opioid fund, or the opioid fund is an extra, like, hey, this is securing this?
For the startup cost, I think it really is needed.
Okay.
We have another ask in for BHASO, the Behavioral Health Service Organization, that we're hopeful about, but I think the settlement funding is an important piece of that.
I think it's a settlement fund that we put very little effort into getting, and what, our community, although is affected by drug use like others, I think that there are some serious concerns with other communities around that Mount Vernon and whatnot in Skagit that did experience some pretty heavy, and still are experiencing some pretty heavy drug addiction. So I think the money would be well spent, in my opinion.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. Woody, can you go to page 85, please? That one, yeah. So I just wanted to go over the Sedro-Woolley specific money, because what everybody else is doing, we have absolutely no say-so in. But so our total available is about 105-ish, and then our allocated for that 80% is the 82. Does that 82,000 that we have allocated, does that cover all three of these programs, or is that just one? We get to pick one of the three, or is it covering the Star Center, the bridge housing, and the detox, or is it the transitional? Which one?
Yeah.
That piece, yeah.
So
So, all three, or just we get to pick one of the three?
I think the way we built this out is it's all three, kind of all together. I think as Monica expressed, we're open to, council direction on this. So if you all said you had a preference for one of the other, I think we would move some money around between the various cities and try and make it work. So the allocated amount you see there adds up to $800,000. So that works together with all the cities kind of participating at the level. It gets tricky if each city starts kind of saying, oh, I want to move mine here or mine here. I think we're willing to work with that, though.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I didn't know if it was, if it funded all three of the programs you were talking about. I just didn't know. So.
Thank you. Councilman Lavaca?
Yeah, I just had a question. How else would we spend the money for opioid use here in our community? Like, has there been ever any thought on that? Like, I don't think we have necessarily, besides the Star, any treatment centers or anything. We pretty much take them right to the hospital?
Yeah, well, actually, the program that Chief Wagner was talking about, that they're trying to get started, I think you were there at the...
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
That's
We
dependent
have
on these
had-
funds?
We have had conversations. There's nothing that's been allotted regarding that. It's still conversation, but I don't know if those two would like to speak to it.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that we had way back when we started the mobile integrated healthcare position was, how are we going to fund this, and how is it going to be sustainable long-term? How are we going to recruit and retain good folks once we get that in there, when we have what we consider a pilot program? And that's some of the hesitance of drawing in and recruiting the right person for these positions. So we were looking at ways, and this was one of the thoughts. We actually hadn't approach how much that was going to be, because we haven't got that person in position yet. And that pilot right now is funded primarily by the funding through Peace Health. So this was one of the brainstorms that we had on how we could assist that long term.
Just to clarify for you guys on what we were talking about, there's a lot of need because 40% of our calls are from pretty much 40 people in a way. That's a rough estimate. And it's repeat calls, and they're pretty low on the spectrum of emergencies. So we had great discussion on actually bringing somebody in to go and provide that care, and it could reduce substantially quite a bit, like way more probably than $1 million a year, I would imagine, if not more. So, and I think other communities are also looking at that. So just to kind of bring you guys up to speed, I didn't know that that was part of that funding, and I would like to see that as as something that helps reduce the overall cost of services, but I don't know that that necessarily would be a opioid-specific cost. So we could use it for that?
Yeah, like I said, it's been part of the discussion. You were asking what we may be looking at. That is one thing that we have brainstormed about, but nothing specific. That would need to come to all of you once we've decided to do what we're going to do.
But there's no others in the community?
No.
All right, all right. I would almost, I don't know how, maybe we can, that would be a Nikki question, maybe a Charlie question for policy, but the opioid funds would be specific towards opioid addiction and detox and housing and trying to build that bridge there back into society. Whereas I think what we were talking about is almost elderly that don't have a grab bar near their toilet, and so they're calling and they need somebody to kind of help out or things like that,
Right.
not necessarily drug use.
Non-emergent, yeah.
Thanks.
Councilwoman Diamond?
Oh, he was actually asking one of my questions, was that, are there other projects on the back burner that haven't been brought forward to us for these, use of these funds? Because that's how we implemented the new K-9 unit. Is the K-9 unit going to need supplemental funds in the future to be funded through this for the success of that program? Is there anything else coming through that we should be aware of and know about for consideration purposes?
I think there's always a potential for that, but purchasing a dog is what we use the K-9 program for. The opioid funds for that is a one-time cost, so hopefully our dog lasts for a while, so it could come up. But this is also a good purpose for those funds too.
And the opioid there'll be more funding coming in as well. Thank you. Charlie, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add that, so all of these settlements for us are governed by the One Washington MOU. This is a long document. There's an appendix in it that lists all the possible uses at the end. There are a variety of uses, but a lot of those uses aren't things the city directly is engaged with. That North Star and Department of Health more engaged with those things than we are. So there's a real opportunity to pool resources. You can see $100,000 that. With us, it's not going to make that much of a difference, but consolidated with a bunch of other agencies pooling our money, we can do a lot more on some of these larger magnitude projects.
Right. Okay. Councilman Henderson?
I just had one more question about the usage. We've had the Interagency Drug Task Force come in and ask us for money at least once before. Are opioid funds a permissible use to help them with their project cost?
I believe the city of Oak Harbor, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is using opioid funds for that purpose.
That's correct.
Yeah. So potentially, yes. I mean, one city has done that.
Can I follow up?
Councilman Cox?
Can I make a motion? Is it too early?
Yeah, you can make a motion.
I was going to make a motion to approve the 104,000, is that the right number? I'm looking at 104,075 for these three projects, which will be very important to address the escalating opioid addictions in our county. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes?
I almost feel like it's a little bit too early to go forward with the motion because we just heard the presentation and we haven't really explored necessarily the other options as we're brainstorming. So I think if it gets voted down for whatever reason, it's something that maybe be on the back burner. But I don't know that for a first read, we usually make a motion. It doesn't necessarily have a motion.
Well, I do have a motion. I'm going to call for a second just to see where it goes. And you've heard the opinions of both Councilman Cock and Councilman Lavaca. So, council members, it's up to you. So, motion was made by Councilman Cock. Is there a second? Okay, hearing none, then we can bring this back. And if it's okay with the council, we can bring this back and have discussion regarding it. Do I hear any opposition to that? Okay, all right. So have we answered questions for you? Do you have?
Just a quick follow-up question. Are there any changes that you would like us to make when we bring this back? Is there any additional information you would like us to bring back in addition to perhaps the
Right.
ongoing, the budget for the startup center, for the STAR Center? Any other direction that you have, anything that we should bring back? And also, do you have a timeline on when should we be back?
For clarification, so the funding that's going to the STAR Center, it is just for the first 2 years. So after that, the funding that's going to the STAR Center will be freed up for the city and the council to choose to do what they wish with it.
Yes, and only for the first. It's just a one-time cost.
Yeah.
So it's not for 2 years, just
All
for
right,
the first
just so
year.
everybody's aware of that. Okay.
I had a quick question. I thought the opioid funds, I mean, although they're collecting in the account, it's not like it's an ongoing deal. So once they're spent, they are spent, correct? Yep.
Yeah.
I was gonna suggest, it seems like, you know, the Star place or facility has 75,000 beds. It seems like it's something that would be directly funded right to the count or right to the facility or whatnot. That might be an option to throw forward going forward and just seeing how could that money go right to there. Not to share a sad story, but we did have a woman hit on the street just recently, and it seemed like she was under the influence. I don't know if she was, but they needed to take her somewhere. She did need to go to the hospital, but after that, where do they go? So I can see where that would be a very big help in our community if that happens.
We're
That
seeing
was-
more of that too, which is disturbing. So the funding is ongoing, correct?
The funding is ongoing, but George described it well. There was at least one of the settlements, it was everything up front. Other settlements, some of them are spread over 17 years, so it's pretty hard to model. In fact, I'm gonna probably go get George's spreadsheet after this discussion. Yeah, and there are more coming. We keep hearing more settlements, and we don't know the numbers on those. So you can assume it's ongoing, but the numbers are going to get smaller over time.
But opportunity to make a great impact right now.
If I could, Mayor.
Councilman Henderson,
Thank you.
yes.
Yeah, I'd like to see you guys again soon. In the sustainability model for that, it'd be nice to kind of see budgetary where we're at. And if the startup costs are really needed, like, we knew we were making that, we knew that we were gonna have to have people working there. And then also, if the money's needed there or if it's needed somewhere else, right? If there's somewhere else we can make a big hit. It'd also be nice to know what the other cities say, because you're gonna see them today and tomorrow, where they're leaning, so we would know where we need to balance funds at, and we can make a more educated decision. And then we'll also be talking to Mr. Bush about the other things that we could possibly use the money for. But I appreciate your guys' presentation. It's always nice to see you.
Yes, thank you so very much for having us. And if we can just have 20 more seconds, and Woody, if you don't mind going back to the last slide, we just wanted to remind you about 2 upcoming things. One actually is related to the STAR Center, but the first one, you should have it in your calendars, more reminders coming, but we do have scheduled a next joint meeting between all the city councils, mayors, and county commissioners on September 30th. Next slide, please, Woody, thank you. And so we hope to see all of you, most of you there. The purpose of that meeting will be to really discuss the interlocal agreement that we started that conversation on in June. We had, in the last couple of months, we had a great work group. Councilmember Cock was participating in that group with Mayor Johnson, along with council representatives from the other cities and mayors and just working together in drafting an interlocal agreement that would formalize the North Star partnership. So we hope to see you at that meeting on September 30th. It's at 6 o'clock. We will provide both online and in-person options. Again, we will send out more reminders, and we will work with staff in making sure that the meeting is noticed. And then for the Star Center, George did share earlier that we estimate that that's gonna open and launch on February, but we are hoping we have a tentative date for a ribbon cutting ceremony, just kind of to celebrate the end or the near end of the construction, and that is scheduled for December 16th. As we firm up additional details, we will send you invitations and updates for that as well, but just wanted to kind of like put a save the date there for both of these. So again, thank you so much for having us tonight.
Really appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you. I know it was kind of, when I made the request, it was, well, we're going to be in Mount Vernon, and then we're going to be in Burlington. And so I'm glad that you actually squeezed us in. Thank you for doing that. Safe travels as you go over. And also thank you for the work that you do within the community, because there is a lot of funding that comes in, and the need is overwhelming, and yet you do a beautiful job of really meeting those needs and doing what you can with the fundings that do come in. Sometimes they're greatly reduced. This year, for example, they were greatly reduced, and you do good work, and it's really, you're kind of our unsung heroes. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, just the same. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Very good discussion. Thank you, Council. We will move on to City Administrator Report, but it looks like we're going to move to Bill. Bill's going to give us an update on the work projects that are happening. Thank you, Bill.
Oops. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. So I wanted to give Council, we got 4 major projects going on. One of them is almost complete. Just kind of where we are both with our construction budget and where we are with change orders and things as well, and a slew of pictures. So anyway, next slide. So real quick, just talking, looking into the procurement policy and how this city does things. Basically, $350,000 is the limit for a small works project. And so if we're doing small works projects, change orders and whatnot are approved by Public Works Director or the city administrator. But if it goes over 350,000 to whatever reason, and then we go to a 10% model. So if we can keep our costs within 10%, we can directly approve those change orders. And then if they're over 10%, we come to council for authorization. But at the same time, I also want to keep folks up to date on where we're at with things. And this is also our 4 main projects this year, a good lesson in underruns and overruns. So on projects, you know, there are certain items that many times overrun, and the idea is we try to manage those with the underruns to balance the project, so we end up with something that's neutral in there. And there's also a difference between what our budget was and what our low bids were. So our budgets, or the engineering estimates that we base them off of, this year we were very fortunate, and I think all but the vehicle storage building all came under engineer estimate. So that's also something we use to balance what we're dealing with. So next slide. Okay, so the first project we'll go over is a 2025 street improvement project. So that included 4 main segments: Township, State Street, Bingham Place, and 1 block of Warner Street. And then our current status is basically all the streets have been paved, and we have all of our striping done. What's left now is to raise the utility covers. So that's where a crew comes back and cuts out a diamond pattern in the street and raises the utility cover lids, and then we patch back over that, and that's where you see that. And then we basically got trimming and cleanup throughout all these projects. But right now, they're basically substantially complete. They're fully usable right now, and other than utility covers, which is kind of the last big effort to do. Next slide. Okay, so our contract status on each of these segments. Warner Street has basically come in cost neutral with no changes or underruns or overruns on it. But, so State Street, original contract price, I won't go over these exactly, but basically we've underrun the asphalt tonnage, and we do have a couple change orders, and we're within about 6.1% over our schedule line item for that. Okay, so, sorry, I've got to figure out my glasses here and looking up. So about so we're about $23,000 over on that, 6.1%. Township Street, similar case, we're about 3.8% over on that. We, $14,000 increase. And some of these is when you hit unexpected things. So some of the pictures show some of that. We actually found a wooden pipe we had to fix. And so what you do is you cut through the wooden pipe and then you plug both ends and stop following it down the road. But, so those things just add different costs when you have unknowns you hit. So next slide. Okay, so Bingham Place, we actually had about an $82,000 underrun, just because we didn't end up hitting as many things as we thought we were going to based on the pavement decrease. So when you all said and done, and like I said, Warner basically came in within about $1,000 of what our engineer's estimate was, so I don't really have a lot to tell on that. But overall, for the entire contract price, right now we're at about 4.8% less than we expected. And right now, the other piece of this is when you're at this side of things is the construction activity left. Does it have a lot of risk of discovering unknowns or fairly low risk? Well, right now with just raising utilities, we've already adjusted. We know how much that's going to cost. So right now, overall with the street and improvement program, again, variety of underruns and overruns, and we're running about 4.5% under the contract price and well under budget on that. So a few pictures, next slide. Okay, so a few pictures on the project. This is kind of an example of an unexpected thing where we had some of the curb and gutter break up on us, so we had to replace some of those sections. But this is Township Street. I don't know exactly where on Town Street. It just was interesting. But again, this is just typical construction pictures of different effort that's interesting. Next slide. Here's the wooden pipe we discovered. Ends up being a hole in the middle of your subgrade. But again, this is a section of our sidewalk improvement we were improving. And again, one of those unknowns we just found, handled, and moved on with. And then you can see that so on this program, when we ground the pavement, we only ground the edges next to the curb and gutter because we need to get back to a 2-inch lift. And then we taper that out, what we call, it's about half a lane before we taper back in, and then we pave over that. But as opposed to full depth grind, just because we didn't necessarily have those defects towards that center line on any of these roads. And so it's a little cheaper to do it like this. But you do end up with a full 2-inch thickness all the way across the road or a little better. Next slide. So I couldn't resist this. This is our very large inspector, but I don't know why this is in the project file, but I couldn't help putting a shadow on this project. But that's, next slide. And then, so this is just a quick picture of Warner Street, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. I'm still learning my geography a little bit, whatever. But this is one lane of paving completed with truck and asphalt, the asphalt paving machine coming towards us, just about done finishing up with that segment of street. Next slide. So next we're going to talk about the roundabout. I had to peel back the number of pictures when I figured out how big my file size was. I got lots of pictures of all this stuff. But, so the SR9 roundabout. So SR9, right now we've got all of our utility locations completed. The north side sidewalk is, what? Oh, wait a minute. You know what? This is the wrong slide. Try going to the next slide. Did I add a slide in I wasn't supposed to have in there? Nope, okay, go back. Time to ad lib. So, what we have on SR9 right now is we basically have all of our utility relocations have been completed on that. Those were probably one of the bigger challenges on the project. And then we focused on all of the subgrade improvements just before paving on McGargle Road and John Liner so we could leave SR9 open for as long as we could. Right now, we're currently under the detour, and I think I had mentioned before that we had found an old concrete road. That's now been removed, so now we can move forward with that subgrade section. And then we should be ready for paving the last week in September, where we'll have a fully paved roundabout, and then we'll have temporary striping for a couple weeks to let the asphalt cure. So when the permanent striping goes down, it can go down with basically the more you can allow the asphalt to cure for that initial thing with the volatiles, the longer your striping will last. So rather than paving it right after you're paved, so we plan to do that as well. And so that's the ongoing. And then we have the illumination. So the illumination RFBs, we're kind of dropping back and punting a little bit because our the longer lead time than expected, and I don't want to. We will install 2 RFBs now that are basically on Highway 9, and then when the others come in, we have on all 4 legs. We'll install the 2 minor legs a little later, but I wanted them installed as we get substantially complete immediately, rather than having to wait till the middle of November, which I think would be hard for the pedestrian. So we're making those types of decisions. And then the illumination, I don't think is coming in until the end of November. And so that's the street lights that we have to make it a lighted intersection. And this is an unexpected material manufacturing delay that we really can't do much about. So those are some of the things we're managing. Next slide. So this is going to be a little bit about the change orders. We have experienced some change orders. We're trying to manage these things, and I'll just kind of describe how this is going. So our original budget of engineering estimate was $2.5 million. We got low bid for about $200,000, a little bit more than that, lower than that. Right now, change order number 1 was $32,000 and some change. We knew the first 2 change orders were going to happen because with this was the overall detour that starts in Bellingham, goes in I-5 and comes around for the truck traffic, because we do have quite a bit of trucking on this road. Well, WashDOT, we went to bid before we had the full WashDOT approval, because otherwise we would have had a really late bid coming out. So WashDOT agreed to allow us to do the detour, agreed what the route was, but they hadn't given us all the signage requirements. We knew those were going to come in after, and so that was the cost from the contractor to put up that signage for the WashDOT things. And signage on I-5 is way different than we're used to, so it's kind of what that is. And then, so we've had, I don't know if that's how you spell planing, but I didn't want to spell planning. So we have some additional grinding on the project to blend some things in, so we know that's a change order coming up. And then we had some different stormwater modifications to get around some obstacles of the utility obstacles underground. So we had to make some adjustments there. So that was about a $27,000 change order. The next one is we do have some overrun risk with traffic control. So traffic control is not an uncommon item to end up running overrun because you end up having to adjust to things. And what our challenge is, so the $50,000 to $80,000, that's what we think our maximum risk is. It's our job to manage that as low as we can. I just don't know what that is. And so then we have some utility-related costs, which is part of what we're going to be asking Nikki to help us with. That's costs we're going to go back to the utilities and ask for them to pay that change order, because it's basically directly related to their late relocation of their utilities. And Nikki has been helping us getting those utilities to move forward and do what they need to be doing. It's been, like I said, it's been challenging, but we've been working around it. And then the cost of removing the concrete road, and then the CDF, we had so controlled density fill is a light grade concrete you often use in utility trenches when you want to get 100% compaction. And it's like a 1-sack mix. So theoretically, you should be able to dig through it with a backhoe with very little problem. It's not uncommon for a contractor or whoever's managing the project to have full-strength concrete on site, a couple truckloads, and use that instead rather than because it's handy and convenient. Well, when you come back later to dig through it, it's much more difficult to break through. It's like hitting a rock. So we had our stinger on site from the other concrete, so we continued to use the stinger. So between 3 days of removing old Model T concrete road and some of the CDF, that's going to be about a $40,000 force account, we believe. So, and then some other miscellaneous stuff on the road. So with all these different challenges we've worked to meet, we're likely to be worst case around that 10% mark, and hoping we can manage through the rest of this successfully will be somewhat less than that. But we will have about, and that's all within our original engineered budget for what we budgeted our local funding as well as our grant funding on the project. So that's kind of where we're at with that, meeting these challenges for it. But that's just kind of giving you an upfront view of it now. And this is when we like to come up with this. It's called a cost to complete. So that when we're about 80% through, this is where we can start managing some of those costs as we approach the end of the project and potentially find some savings and that type of thing in that. If you don't do this, then you really, and you don't figure out where you're at until you're almost done with the project, there is no way to achieve any savings. So this is kind of a normal thing for the project. And it's kind of, when you dig into the ground, you find unknowns sometimes. So that's where we're at with that, the status of that project. So next slide, these are some roundabout pictures. And so this is, and yeah, I only have 4 pictures of the project, but this is part of a, wait a minute, let me make sure I know where I'm at. Yeah, this is in front of the fan property. You've got basically that metal pipe there is actually a foundation for the RRFBs. You've got a manhole cover and a trench box. It's just different earthwork, or early earthwork in the project. Next slide. And this one's going to be looking back the other way. But that's an example of a cage we're putting in for our light poles. So a light pole foundation is about 10 feet, 9 to 10 feet deep. Just solid concrete to keep those mast arms up. But this is just some active pictures. Next slide. And this is just, a picture of the approaches getting built. This is John Liner Road looking at McGargle, or across the street to that. And this is about 2 feet deep. Some places were 3 feet deep where we're installing new stormwater just to get the pipes down far enough. And then one more slide. And this is the concrete road we're tearing up. So that's the stinger. And we had to pull up about 400 to 500 feet of concrete road, I think. So this is just the start of that. And so, it's a pretty big effort. So next slide. Okay, Olmsted Park. So status, we're about 53% complete. That's going to change a lot just because the asphalt paving is a really big part of that that project cost. And we'll be, I believe we're ready to pave in 2, maybe 3 weeks, depending on weather. So the look of Olmsted Park is going to change drastically because we're going to have all of our hard surfaces paved in a pretty short time frame. And I guess, knock on wood, we got, a visit from Department of Ecology because we have so much ground exposed. They're concerned about water runoff. We got Brickyard Creek close by and all that. Apparently, we passed their inspection with flying colors, so our contractor is keeping his BMPs up. And for a 14-acre site, that's not really easy to do. But, so right now, we're just actually finished installing the last of the stormwater piping. And we've expended all the utilities to the pavilion and the rest of the site. 2 of our pavilions have running water and electricity, and the 2 large pavilions. And so the caretaker's residence, I think we're getting ready to put sheetrock up in there now. So it's coming along pretty good, and it looks pretty cool. And then our stormwater detention pond and structures are about 50%. We have a couple of pictures of those in here too. It's again pretty impressive on how much landscape they have to change for those things. And so the ongoing near future thing is mainly the parking lot paving is our next big push to get all that grading done. Let me think. The north side of the park, those trails are mainly paved, and the south side of the park, those are limestone, gravel, cinder sort of things. And then it's the full trail completion and the site restoration. Also, what's going in right now is the Rotary Club and Janicki are finishing up the, no, not shelters, the bridge. I can't remember what the name of the bridge is. It's dedicated to somebody. I think it's Thompson Bridge. Anyway, that bridge will be installed in conjunction with us finishing with this park, so then Skagit Trail Builders can complete the trail around the pond. So we will have kind of a full service thing going on with the park and a completed pond improvement as well. So next slide. This is going to start coming together very quickly. So where we are at with this contract pass, we do have a few different change orders. Change order number 1, just like the football fields that we just recently put a change order in with you folks, was Skagit PUD is requiring RPBAs, reverse backflow prevention assemblies, which are just basically they're requiring a higher level of protection than just high health hazard protection. So we had to add one of those, and then we had some different stormwater improvements and foundation deals to do with that. So that was about a $36,000 change order. And then the pavilion concrete finish. So one of the things we realized is that our pavilions throughout the city have a particular textured concrete finish on the floors and different things. And so when we realized that that wasn't planned for this project, we wanted those to be consistent. So we initiated that change order just to make it consistent throughout the city. And then the third change order, we had so the architect designed part of our project to use grade 2 lumber as a cost saving measure. And then as we got into the project, we made the decision to use grade 1 lumber, just 1 for aesthetics, 2 we'll get better, longer lasting buildings out of it. And so we just made that decision at that point so that we just were using first rate materials rather than economy materials mixed with the premium materials on the end. And that's both also applies to the pavilions, the restrooms, and the caretaker building as well. So all in all, and then we've also gotten, some minor credits back on the project. So this is a lump sum project. And so what you deal with is a schedule of values as opposed to several line items like we do on road projects. So, you get change orders and then you can get credits for if you end up getting something done more cheaply than was expected. And so our total anticipated cost right now, and I think after we get past the paving, most of our higher cost risk will be done with this project, so we're getting pretty close to that. And we can manage our paving costs and tonnage pretty carefully. So I don't expect too many more unknowns or surprises, especially we have most of our earthwork done too, so we're not going to discover anything. So right now we're at about 3%. We're within 3.5% of the contract budget on this project. Next slide. And so these are some project pictures. This is a picture of the of basically the garbage shelter where we put the garbage bins and the roll-offs. Next slide. The next 2 slides are just a couple pictures of the public restrooms. And so this is just the interior. So that's just constructing part of the public restrooms. Next slide. And I think that the next one's going to be the pavilion. No, okay. This is our caretaker residence when it's starting its framing. Next slide. This has the sheathing. So the caretaker residence, if you look at the windows and the doorways and stuff, they're kind of an arched window architectural feature to sort of mimic what's going on at Northern State and what that is. So, and the caretaker residence now, like I said, they've got the roof on and they're doing the internal sheetrock and internal improvements and whatnot. So it's going to be a pretty cool building. Next slide. This is another photo. These are our pavilions. You can't really see the texture on the floor there, but it's there. And basically, as these gets constructed, they'll have the countertops. They're internal to them, very similar to what you have at Riverside or Riverfront Park. And again, the two larger pavilions have the utility features in it for running water and electricity and that type of thing. And the next slide. So this is a little bit more about the earthwork that's going on. I mean, it's pretty expansive when you have a park that covers 14 acres. This is the detention pond we have for the stormwater on this site. And so it's a shallow detention pond so that we, limit our public risk to it so we don't have to fence it. And it's a lot of square feet. Next slide. And then here's just another earthwork picture of how we're sculpting this whole site to turn it into a park. Okay, next. Okay, our vehicle storage building. So right now we're 95% complete. We'll be ready to move into this site in October, and it's only got a couple weeks left to go before it's physically complete. So we're pretty excited about that. Just real quick costs on this, we're 0.2% over budget on this project. So it again, project with very few unknowns. Is pretty easy to build a building when you know exactly what's there. And we've been able to keep those costs pretty balanced. Okay, next slide. I got actually more slides on this one. And so this is the raw project site, digging in the footings. Next slide. This is the rebar for the slab as that's getting built. Actually, I think they're getting ready to pour concrete on it right now. Next slide. Initial framing. Next slide. And that's getting the roof put on and just another progress in the framing. Next slide. This is the inside when it was complete. Or, well, it's not complete, but this is when all the insulation, framing, and this is right before they put the ventilation ductwork in. And then, and basically, there's enough room to park 2 garbage trucks nose to nose in this. So we'll be parking trucks from both sets of garage doors. And final slide. And so this is fairly complete building without the garage doors on it. I think we have the garage doors on it now. But this is really what it's going to look like. So we can't wait to move into it. Okay, I think that's my last slide. Is it? Yep.
Okay. We have a question by Councilman Kopp.
Yes.
Thanks, Bill, and thank all your staff for all their good work on these projects. I think all 3 will benefit the citizens of Sedro-Woolley. I had 2 questions on each of the park and the roundabout. On the roundabout, how's it, obviously you can imagine getting complaints from, why do I have to do this, from my constituents, and some of them, just a few, they were all pretty nice. Sure. And I tell them, it's going to be an improvement, but how's it going for the children, the safety of the children crossing there?
Actually, I've heard the least concerns about that on other things. I mean, part of it, initiating the detour and stuff, it took about 3 days for people to kind of learn what they could do and couldn't do, and not to try to take a shortcut down Dana Drive because it doesn't go all the way through, regardless of what Google says. And so we kind of worked out those things. Actually, as far as the school children, as I know, we've been pretty successful getting the information out that, on the north side, kids got to cross the street, and then you walk down the east side of the project, and about a week, after the first week of school, we had a complete full sidewalk with no gravel in between. So it's pretty easy for them to know where they're supposed to be. And we haven't had any incidents where, you know, Johnny decided to go ride the backhoe or anything. So it's been pretty well controlled and very well coordinated with the school district. And then we've also, of course, our flaggers have been really good about just giving that extra level of service to the kids getting to school. And then on the south side, of course, they go to, I can't remember what the road name is, but the one road that has a crosswalk to the south of the project. And so, and that way they feed into the middle school first, and the elementary kids walk around the back and go to school there. So I think that's all been handled rather successfully, and I think both our team and the contractors' team with the flaggers and stuff have been really sensitive because they didn't want it, you know, they wanted a success and a win with no problems. So from the school kids' standpoint, I think it's worked very well. And from the traveling public's standpoint, I think they've gotten used to it fairly quickly. And I think I'm glad we got that temporary signal up because I think that's helped a lot as well.
And we'll recoup some money by the sale of the house that we own.
Oh,
there.
yes. So there is, part of this funding mosaic to get all this. You know, originally we had about $970,000, $940,000 of REAP fund allocated to this project. And Public Works was successful in getting a $500,000 EDI grant towards this project, so that offset that REAP funding to go somewhere else, so we're not using as much of our own money on this project. And then we're on the Fan property, we've got, so the Totino property, which is one on the northeast, the asbestos abatement has been done, so when it's time to trigger the demolition of that property, we'll do that. Utilities have been disconnected, and then we'll resell that property as a buildable lot with utility hookups. The Fan property, we've relocated the electrical box for the house and the gas now, and then our crew are gonna do the renovations to the garage to get it out of the site distance, and then we will sell that property as a house. And as part of this TIB, originally we would have to split any proceeds, 80%, 20% with them, and they have agreed to just give us all of the proceeds to put back in our street fund. So we will likely be able to put, it's hard to say, but $400,000 to $500,000 back into our street fund that can go to things like Jones John Liner, Arterial Road, and that type of stuff.
Thank you. And the question I had on the park, and thank you for the great work on that. That'll be a fantastic benefit to the city. One concern, and I appreciate your putting in the detention ponds because we've had flooding, comes down that hill, and then you know the park's on a hill above the wetlands, and we get flooding on Brickyard Creek and Golf Course. We've had flooding come down Culkin and Wedmore. So I appreciate prevention because you're going to have a lot of impervious surfaces up there that water will run off of. So I appreciate that. And one thing I did want to say, I forgot to mention on the roundabout is I really appreciate how hard y'all are working, and you ran into some issues, but getting it done before it gets dark, you know, before the change in time, because I still have worries about those children crossing south of the roundabout, people coming down 9 not being used to roundabouts, and we'll see, because they don't just use that roundabout when there's flaggers there. I mean, that crossing, they'll use it all the time to get to the middle school and the elementary. So that was just my observation.
Right.
So.
And part of that's why we have an activated push button at all 4 legs. So we're trying to help that as much as we can with the pedestrians.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Councilman Lavaca?
And those RFBs are not going to be solar. They're going to be hardwired, so they don't have issues with solar that can maybe make them malfunction.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Bill, for presenting this and giving us an overview of what the costs of the projects are. especially that roundabout. And although it is, a little bit delayed and you do get complaints, I live right in the Ward 2, right across from Councilman Coe. So we do see that, but I'm really glad the kids have been making a safe journey around. I've gone out there and looked at them traveling. That was the biggest concern with a lot of the people. And then, of course, the traffic delays, but the kids were the hugest thing. So people seem to be, like you said, accustomed to it at this point and acceptant to the fact that it's going to take what it takes to get done. So appreciate your hard work on it, and thanks for the budget overview.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Bill, for that thorough report. And also, I want to extend our thanks to the citizens, because this has really been quite a process with all the streets and the parks and everything else that's going on. And we did them all at once, so we're knocking them out, I guess, as we're doing them. But anyway, thank you to the citizens for being so patient. But yeah, it's looking good. It's great. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. One question that I was going to ask, I thought maybe somebody else would ask, estimation of time when that roundabout might be open?
So estimation, when it will be, I call things in substantial completion and physical completion. So substantial completion is when it can it can be utilized for its intended use, and that will likely be the first week of October, maybe the second week of October,
Okay.
when we'll open it back up, all four legs of traffic.
All right.
And then with those extra pieces like RFBs and lighting and striping and those things will just be the ongoing thing to finish up.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to, before we move away, City Administrative Report. Charlie, is there anything that you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, all right, good. Moving on then to Council Member and Mayor Report. I'm going to start from the other end and work our way this way. So Councilman Lavaca?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, I do want to give a shout out to Charlie Kirk. I believe we lost somebody very important to us today. He was a political activist, but he was also the first to be assassinated in a time that I can even remember, all the way back to Martin Luther King. So that was very unfortunate that happened. And people like that, regardless of what side of the aisle, that are making an impact, their voices should at least be respected. So I do want to give that out for him. I've gotten a bit about the traffic, so I love having that overview and be able to let them know that, yeah, we are on budget. And so that's been the biggest, hottest topic, especially with the intersection over on Reed and how that's kind of worked out. So people are making their way around, and I'm glad to see we're on budget. So I'll be able to report that back out.
All right, thank you. Councilman Cock?
Thank you, Mayor. I was involved in some housing stuff recently. I attended the Family Promise Gala, which I thought was very well attended. And then yesterday, I went to the new library in Mount Vernon for their housing forum, where, again, we heard from the University of Washington professor who wrote the book, Housing is a Homelessness Problem, I guess. I think that it just came home to me sitting in those two forums that homelessness and especially lack of affordable housing in both Skagit County and Sedro-Woolley, at least based on the statistics I saw at some of these meetings, is a crisis. That I have a kid, he's professional, but he lives in San Francisco, and he kind of is tired of the big city, and he was looking at moving back to Sedro-Woolley. He said the apartments are the same amount as he's looking in San Francisco and Skagit County, which is just crazy. And I'm an old journalist, so I always confirm, and I went online, Redfin and all the sites. He's right. I mean, if you want to go for a 2 or 3 bedroom in San Francisco, it's a lot more, but you're talking 1 bedroom, they're close. So I think we need to make some real efforts to respond to that. Also, just a little statement, it's schools out, schools in, watch out for children in the streets. Thank you very much.
Good reminder, thank you. Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. I only have one thing tonight. I watched a recent commissioners meeting workshop on their budget shortfall that they're going to be experiencing this next year in the senior services. looking at that, I think that it'd be prudent of us as a city to start a conversation based on how we can make sure that their services aren't interrupted for senior services and their nutrition for the Meals on Wheels programs. They've assured that there's not going to be any cuts as of yet, but us having that conversation early, I think, would be a good thing to do. So that's it for me.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the presentation and the update on all of the traffics and streets situations. I've, as you can imagine, received a ton of complaints from people in the community as well as business owners, because at one point there were many streets that were closed and several businesses that reached out to me that said that they actually lost business, deliveries, they had to cancel everything for the day, and they sent people home because they couldn't get things where they needed to be in a timely manner. So they weren't expecting that. They were really unhappy. But now that it's done, they see the improvement. So thank you for the update for that. The biggest complaint in regards to that as well leads to back into the whole housing cycle and whether or not the city can actually has the infrastructure to support all of the additional housing with the amount of traffic and the backups and all of the things that have been going on. So in some of the constituents' conversations, it has come up in that, if the comp plan is saying we're supposed to have X amount of additional homes, how are we actually going to make that feasible? How are our first responders going to be able to provide their services and not raise taxes from the city? All very valid points and concerns. So that's all stuff that I have been currently addressing and talking to constituents about. Other than that, I've also had a couple complaints about e-bikes and scooters weaving in and out of traffic on Reed Street, Ferry Street, Metcalf Street, and State Street. Likely also as well because school is now in session, maybe going to and from and after school. But regardless, completely dangerous behavior for the children that are doing it, as well as the drivers on the road. So I just wanted to bring that up into attention. Thank you.
All right. Councilwoman Kesty.
Thank you. I just have a few things tonight. Like many American families today, I'm devastated over the murder of Charlie Kirk. His death is a sobering reminder of how dangerous political violence and mob mentality have become. We must do better as Americans, choosing respect over division, dialogue over hatred, and unity over violence. My thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and tomorrow is September 11th. May we never forget the men and women who lost their lives and the sacrifice and bravery that was shown on that fateful day.
All right. Councilman Loy.
We had a public safety meeting tonight, and just real quick, the fire chief gave us the 1, 2, 3s on the ambulances, and explained, the transport fees and GEMT, and I'm not going to remember what each word means, and financially, it looks like it's doing pretty good financially, so that's kind of interesting. And he gave us some pretty little pieces of paper, and you take the time to look at it, and it actually tells you some good stuff. So the other thing we talked about was the community center, and I won't bore you with because we're going to it now, so I'll move on. Thank you.
Mayor, can I add something to my remarks?
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, I wanted to, for the housing forum yesterday, I wanted to thank Nicole for participating in the group talking to us, the panel discussion. Thank you.
And so along those lines, I also was going to talk about the forum. I wanted to thank you, Nicole. You really shined and made Sedro-Woolley proud. But more than that, you discussed innovative ideas, which I think is really what we need right now. That's cutting edge, and if we're going to make a difference in a community, within the nation, we're going to have to think outside the box. And you're one of those. You're one of those thinkers, so thank you. I wanted to bring to attention to the council, under information, we have the National Preparedness Month, and there is some really good information underneath that. It's for all families. I also encourage the public, if you're interested, to go online and to look at that. It's towards the end of our agenda. These next two items were actually sent out to the council as a reminder. I want to, in your email, the Song Sparrow Bridge ribbon cutting, that's on the 19th. And the Innovation Resource Center ribbon cutting is on October 11th at the Swift Center. And so with that, I am going to move on to public hearing. And Kelly, this is to you. This is ordinance 210425. 2025 budget amendment number 3. This is our first read with this, so no recommendation, no motion is needed. The way that this public hearing will go, Kelly will share the information with us. I will then open it up to the public for comments, and once they have made their comments, I will turn it to the council at that point where they can make comments and ask questions, and we'll move from there. So Kelly, thank you.
Good evening, Council. So this is a routine budget amendment. The city will likely have one more budget amendment close to the end of the year. We've included in here a summary of the changes. Most of the changes relate to a couple of big items. For expenditures, as Bill went over some of our larger projects, the McGargyle, John Liner, SR9 project is a big chunk of the increase in the expenditures here. Also, the Public Works vehicle storage building as well. And then kind of third in line is the Affordable Housing Fund increase in expenditures. All of these are related to projects or contracts already approved by council. So those items make up about 80% of the increase in expenditures. The rest are kind of some smaller items. Related to revenue, most significant increase in revenue is related to grant funding to fund some of our projects. I think Bill talked about we got some grant funding and then can reduce some of our local funding on REIT. We also have projected revenue for sewer connection increase this year, so we've included that as well, and transfers from other funds is in there as well. So those items combined make up about 95% of our projected change in revenue, and then it's just some other small items in there. Did want to point out that the proposed budget is balanced and that our revenue increases are above our expenditure increases.
Can I add one thing real quick? So just one clarification, like for instance, on the roundabout project where we have a bunch of our increases, really what these were for, as I transitioned over from Mark, the plan at that time was to complete the right-of-way and complete design before January. So I didn't know those would be ongoing through April, so I didn't budget those items in the budget. And so, but those costs carried over, so they're just sort of things we didn't expend in 2024. So this is more of a true-up, so it shows that we're not negative, we actually are positive, and that's just, it's just a true-up cost, it's not an additional cost.
Okay, all right. And Kelly, have you completed your report?
Yes.
Okay, so I am going to open it up to the public. I ask that you give your name and how you are related to the city, and if you can keep it to 3 minutes, and keep it focused on the topic that we're talking about, which is the budget. We will have public hearing or public comment right after this, so if there's anything beyond the budget that you want to talk about, you would give it at that point, at the public comment. But for right now, if you want to talk about something related to housing, this amendment, the budget amendment, please come forward. Okay. Seeing none, I am going to move it to the council then, and council, you are free to ask questions, make comments. Is there any questions or comments? Councilman Lavaca.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you very much, Kelly, for responding to my email and replying to that. I appreciate it. In going through it, it looked like we got more revenue even though the budget went up, so we're still in pretty good look ahead for going into 2026, which is nice. I still feel like our budgets are really tight, like I always preach about. Hopefully we can get a lot more of a surplus than what we have, so we don't have to ride such a tight line. But I do appreciate you going through that and answering the questions I had. One I didn't include in that question set that I gave you was, it was for the general, it was for the expenditures in the solid waste operation fund, and it was for the curbside recycle disposal. And so our original was 180 and the proposed is 240, so it went up 60. And it looks like it's obviously, there were some rate increases, and then we weren't billed properly, and then so they ended up having to bill us after the fact, and that hit us pretty good with our budget. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's actually something I've got to follow up with Nikki to say, okay, what do we do about what's our liability when waste management? So we deliver all of our recycled waste to waste management as opposed to the county transfer station. So it's a similar relationship, one's for recycled materials, one's for normal solid waste. And yeah, I don't have a good answer to that. It's something I'm going to ask with Nikki to say, you know, do we have a contractual relationship where, you know, if you don't bill us in time, it's too late or whatever that is. But it does make an issue where we have this big bolus of funding that we have to pay for. It does unbalance your budget all of a sudden that you were intending to move on. So I don't know what the exact answer is, but it's going to be something where I want to explore the contractual business relationship to see what's appropriate and what's not.
Yeah, that's perfect. Awesome. Great answer. That's kind of what I was hoping you would go with is, you know, you can't bill us that late and then expect like, you know, awesome. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I am going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and I will open public comment. It's 7:31. I'm going to open public comment again. Please keep it to 3 minutes or less. Please give us your name and how you are related to Sedro-Woolley, and yes, so feel free to come forward. And just make sure that the blue button is on.
It's on.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just a couple things before I get started on just with the one brief thing I wanted to talk about tonight. Talking about the Olmsted Park and partnership with Rotary and Janicki on building the bridge. We ended up not engaging in that. That's solely a Janicki thing. They jumped on it and they wanted to take it over, so we'd like to claim credit for some of that, but we can't. And the other thing is we have, I think, made an agreement, or actually may have paid it for buying the picnic tables for up there. Rotary has done that. But I didn't introduce myself. Lynn Tucker, former city employee and president of our local Rotary Club. The thing I really wanted to talk about here real quick is the upcoming ordinance 2105, the community center that you're going to have a first read on tonight. Just want to make a couple of comments on that before that hit the floor. Historically, the providing security for events there was in the chief of police's purview. I did it for several years. Doug Wood did it for several years before that, on whether or not that we actually believe we needed any security in there. I think some of that went away whenever we didn't have the manpower to staff that. And I've done a couple of those security gigs in there way back when, and you know, it seemed to go well whenever we needed it. But and I would strongly urge going back to that instead of having a really inclusive policy of no, you can't do this, or we're going to charge you a whole bunch of money. And to clarify something in number 2 on the background summary information, alcohol permitted, I was just wondering, it says the city will retain the security deposit if alcohol is present. I don't know if that's going to entail anytime alcohol is present there. Is it presence or consumption? Because on our regular Thursday Rotary meetings, we have bottles of wine there. We're not drinking them, but they're part of a raffle for our club. And is that going to be something that needs to be addressed in the ordinance so nobody gets caught? Because I think the spirit of this is the consumption, but it'd be nice to clarify if you do go down that route, that we can still do something like that as long as we're not, doing something that's not permitted. And, one of the things that I wanted to offer is an example. I've only got just a few seconds left here, but it seems a little bit, a little ridiculous to have our Sedro-Woolley president installation. And we have alcohol there, and are we going to have 2 police officers present to monitor that? If we have our Christmas party there, are we going to have 2 police officers and $1,000 there to monitor that? And there's I know potentially there's a 60th birthday party coming up next year there, and my alcohol enjoying family and friends, we're going to have a couple of police officers there for that. So I just wanted to throw those things out as part of a consideration. This will affect Rotary, and I am talking as a Rotary president, and we talked about this at our board meeting last night. And just offering some suggestions or some concerns that we have. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Just kind of an FYI, this will come up. We did talk about this earlier in the committee meeting, council committee meeting. There were notes that were taken, and I'm sure that's going to be part of the discussion that's coming. So thank you. Thank you.
I meant to come in for that, but I was at a 5-year-old's soccer game trying to get that set up before I zoomed away to this.
That was more important.
And I had to wind around the traffic over there at Cascade Middle School, too. So just let you know. Would have been here earlier. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Appreciate it.
Okay. Audra, excuse me.
It's okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Audrey Wall, local citizen and business operator for Family Promise of Skagit. This will be my first announcement of how our fall fundraiser went. So you guys are getting the first numbers. We raised $126,000 at that fundraiser, and Sedro-Woolley was very well represented. We had very great auction items representing our businesses and got a lot of marketing for that as well. So that was very exciting. We were also able to announce our capital campaign, our formal launch, a little bit ahead of what we had scheduled. We have not fully raised 70%, but our community was wanting more announcements, and they wanted to be updated as things were happening. So that was the easiest way for us to just get around all that and just launch it so we can just be public all the time. Along with that, I wanted to make sure that all of the council and the public knew that the public hearing, the hearing examiner did approve our permit. So we will be working on the conditions that were submitted back to us, and I would be happy to come and present that during public comment as we work through those as well, so that we can stay forward-facing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Anyone else for public comment? All right, hearing none, I'll close public comment, 7:37. And we are going to move into unfinished business. The first item on the list is ordinance 210325. It's a special events. It's a first read. So no recommendation or action is being requested at this time. And Kelly, I'll turn this back over to you.
Great. Hello again, Council. So you all discussed the potential changes to the municipal code related to special events at the last study session. So this ordinance reflects those changes discussed, and they're included there. So happy to answer any questions or.
Okay. Councilman LaVaca?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for working on this. It looks like all of our concerns and comments were put into this and thoughtfully constructed. So increasing the threshold from 50 to 100 people for special events permits, clarifying when a special event permit's needed. If you have an event at the community center at a park or city area, that it's not necessarily needed. or a business for wedding venues and stuff like that, it's not needed as well. And I think one of the most important things was removing the requirement for the city to recoup those city funds for things like parades and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you guys working on that and making sure we get all those concerns we had in there.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. Yeah, again, nice job. Everything we covered is included in here, so I'm happy with it. I appreciate it. I'm ready to move forward on this, and let's just get it inked so we don't hit that October, the other deadline from the other thing, right? So.
Okay. Councilman Cock?
Yes, I also agree. I think this was well done, and it reflects the council discussions. I especially appreciate, there was angst about charging for special events, and these are important to Sedro-Woolley, so I'm glad we're not doing that.
Anyone else? So I heard
Madam Mayor?
Henderson, yes,
Oh.
go ahead.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the special events ordinance 2103 TAC 25.
Okay,
Second.
okay. So we have a motion by Councilman Lavaca, second by Councilman Cock to move forward with ordinance 2010325, and that is amending chapter 12.44 of the special events. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Can I
Madam Mayor?
say something on this?
Oh, you said 2201?
20103.
Oh, point 201, okay,
I'm
thank you.
sorry, there's a typo in the action.
It should be 210325,
Yes.
and it's chapters 1244 of the special events.
Oh, I see it, got it.
And motion carries. Councilman Cock?
Just a quick, there should be some follow-up on the organizations that had expressed some concerns beforehand. I mean, it's only 4 of them, right?
We will follow up. We sent letters, so everyone who we sent letters to, we will send updates on that.
Very good. Moving on to unfinished item number 2. This is ordinance 210225. It's the CHIP grant reimbursement for eligibility fees. This is a second read, and we are looking for a motion. Charlie?
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. So want to just provide some context for this. So we have House Bill 1406 funds, sales tax funds that we receive. They're backed by a credit against the state sales tax. So essentially, when that tax went into place, nobody saw their taxes go up here locally, but the state provided a bunch of money back for affordable housing, which we've then, and services, which we've then spent several times over. So we're spending state money to support affordable housing. We have 1590, which was a state authorized program for sales tax, which was an increase of taxes on local residents. And the CHIP program is a lot like 1406 in the sense that it's just through a grant mechanism, but it's state funding that is meant to be layered with a variety of other affordable housing supportive programs like 1590 to try to get to various levels of affordability. And this is really what our comp plan is going to require us to do going forward. It's what the state's requiring us to do. And it's really what's needed, at least at this time, in terms of providing housing for our community. So with that preface, I went back through what I wrote for you. I highlighted a couple of things. The real policy question on this ordinance is whether the council is comfortable using state funds basically to reimburse system development charges with CHIP grant revenues for Sedro-Woolley affordable housing projects. So projects that come in that we apply for, that the council approves, whether we're okay allowing the state to give us money to help support those projects to hit various levels of affordability. I also underlined here, this is really a broadly written ordinance to incorporate any current or future CHIP applicants, so to really try to make use of this program that the state has available. It is a competitive grant program. It's not an automatic. We have to compete against other applicants and see how we do. There were questions asked at the last meeting, so I want to cover those real quick. I was asked, what's the state's source of funds for the CHIP program? It comes from the state's capital budget. So the state will issue debt, and money will come back to help support these projects. It also comes from dedicated funding sources. Just like for us on our capital projects, there are some dedicated revenues that are only dedicated to, for example, transportation projects. The state also has some dedicated revenues like that for capital expenditures. And then reserves, just like we did for Olmsted Park, took some of our reserve money and used it for Olmsted Park. The state will sometimes use reserves as well for its capital budget. So that's the source of funds for this particular program. There was a question, can we charge developers to assist them with the application? We cannot do that. It's not an allowable expense in the grant. So I did check into that as well. I did talk with Skagit County's lead staff person. Skagit County, Burlington, and Mount Vernon have all received these grants. And what I've heard back is that the administration is fairly minimal on our end. There are a couple of reports due each year. We're going to have, I guarantee you, when we put the contract together, we're going to have whatever organization we would work with do a lot of the lifting on that for us. There was a question about what's involved in the administration of the grant. I think I generally covered that, but the developers that work with us are also completing a bulk of the grant application itself. A lot of the questions are specific to their project, not things that we can necessarily answer on their behalf. And then I got a question outside of the council meeting, but I wanted to address it in my memo as well. Could somebody build an ADU in their yard and ask the city to apply through this program to support their project? Technically, yes. Would it be competitive at the state level? Probably unlikely. And could an individual guarantee affordability for the required 25 years? There are mechanisms our city attorney has advised us on related to that are really problematic for us to work with an individual. To work with an entity, a nonprofit, another government, that's a different scenario. But to work with individuals would be legally problematic. So wanted to make sure I addressed that question as well. I guess just in closing on this initial presentation, there is no match required, so the city's not out any money in participating in this program. We would only reimburse these fees if we received a grant and the council approved it. So we're certainly I'm recommending to you that we move forward with this ordinance. I think it will help us with another tool for affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Diamond?
Question, can you clarify? I think it was touched on last time this was discussed, but if there's a project that has 4 units, only one of them is going to be affordable through the developer's project. Are they legally entitled to all 4 units being waived, or is it just the one?
The one. It's only the affordable units that can have their system development charges waived.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, it's different. I think we were maybe talking about a different program where it actually does apply to more in a different discussion. But for this one, yes, just the individuals that are waived. In the case of the projects we're likely going to be looking at, it's going to be most of the units or a vast majority of the units.
Okay, because we had discussed there's the possibility of 1 unit or one developer, if they were going to do it, you were looking at probably $1 million plus, right?
Yeah.
And then there's other ones that would be $10,000. And at the end of the day, the tax-paying dollars, regardless of where it comes from somebody. It's not free money, right? Like, we all pay state taxes. We're taxed in our paychecks, we're taxed at the grocery store, we're taxed everywhere. And yes, they're building programs to try to help that stuff, but all they're doing is increasing taxes to fund this stuff, and it's escalating a problem and not solving it. Because you're pushing some people that were right on the edge down, and then they're needing help because they're being taxed out of their homes and taxed out of all of the issues. I mean, there's an increase in senior citizens and Meals on Wheels right now, and the difference from 2021 to now in likely, obviously, age and all the things, but the inflation and all the other factors that have played along in it don't help people that have been on fixed incomes for all this time. And we have a community with, a good amount of people on fixed incomes. And I mentioned before, I really struggle with this simply because I realize that the money is there. I realize that there is a need for affordable housing, but I also really struggle with continuing to live on grant money that is ultimately costing everybody around us at the same time. At some point, something else has got to give. And so that was my struggle. I'm happy that that's clarified, that only the one unit as opposed to all units would be considered for this, because I was under the assumption it was all units. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, I'd like to
Cock?
clarify one more thing if I could as well, and that is the 9,900 that I was quoting previously. That's our I went back, talked with folks. That's our connection fee per unit for sewer. So each unit of sewer, 9,900. So for 14 units, for example, on a project, that's $140,000. So that's significant money.
Councilman Cock?
Yes, first of all, to address the grants come from the state legislature, and the state legislature is comprised of legislators who are voted on by the public. So these are voted on, elected representatives. They decide the budget, which then comes back to us in the form of tax money that they have designated. So, you know, I think it's part of democracy. The second part, I mean, if you don't like it, you know, go to the legislature, run for the legislature. The second part is that I think this is an important toolkit addition for affordable housing. When I was at the housing forum last night, the fellow that was with University of Washington talked about you know, doing creative things to assist affordable housing. And, you know, if we just do nothing, affordable housing will still be, and I think I got this percentage right in Skagit County, 0.04%. So where are those people going to be? They're going to be in RVs, they're going to be in cars, and they're going to be on the street. So if we cannot increase, and this helps the nonprofits, you know, they're all tight on money. It helps it. It doesn't cost us anything. It's just a pass-through. So I support it.
Okay. Councilman Lavaca?
Thank you. Yeah, I went to that housing forum yesterday too, over there that they had, and I thought it was very interesting. I actually learned some stuff from Greg Colesbaum. And one thing I saw was that, you know, joblessness counts for about 25% of homelessness. Drug and alcohol use is about 15%. Eviction is about 15%. Divorce and separation, another 10%. It kind of goes down from there. And one of the things that he was mentioning that I hadn't quite considered was, or that I've kind of thought about, but if you're removed from the situation, you don't really consider it. And that's going to be where if there's not enough, if the rents are too high like San Francisco or around here, and you hit a job loss, where you take on a job of a lower wage, or a family member gets sick, so half that salary goes away, now you're at a point of eviction and you don't got a place to go because there's not enough houses. He did, and I don't think he inadvertently did it, but he did kind of slam Washington in a big way for that, because we watched what happened in California. They, you know, overtaxed, they overregulated, they saw the eviction or the vacancy rates drop really low and the homelessness grow exponentially. And then he proved in communities where you have large drug use and you have large even mental illness or large poverty doesn't equate to homelessness. And I thought that was interesting as well. Seattle has some of the largest homelessness, same thing with New York, same thing with California, in the nation. Yet in Washington, we have the highest GDP, and Seattle has some of the highest wages. And so it's kind of interesting to see that. At the same time, I do very much so see where the council is coming from, or part of the council, with constantly going and increasing the taxes, because that's the same thing that California did do. He mentioned that we banned urban sprawl. He also mentioned that we overregulate incredibly. And I think that even earlier with the conversation with Councilman Cock was, how do we deregulate? How do we actually, on a city level, we can kind of do it, but it's really a state level. And so it's way too expensive to build. And so rather than addressing those deregulations, we're kind of going back to the government and saying, hey, you've made it really expensive for us to build. Can we please get money from you so that we can afford it, as they continue to raise that up? And I know that it's a democracy that our legislatives do vote on that, but unfortunately, most of that comes from King County, Pierce County, and they make the decisions for the entire state. Hence, climate change with green canopy cover required in Sedro-Woolley. on the verge of 500,000 acres of national forest. And so they don't really, it's not necessarily well represented. And so when I first asked you, Charlie, I thought you said it would be a couple of $1,000s. And then just now you said that it could be, $8,000, $9,000 per unit. And if you are doing something that does have multiple units, that could add up substantially. So that does weigh in a little bit more as well. But yeah, I wish that we can figure out a way to deregulate, increase possible sprawl versus densification, which is what Washington wants to do. And then, we got to tackle the problem with the spending. It's a spending problem. So, thank you.
Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. I also share concern with that you mentioned that this comes out of the general fund. And so if we're able to do this and we keep on pushing this, right? It feels like you go around town and you can't really find very many places to build left, right? So we're getting more and more dense. Our traffic's getting worse and worse. We have more of a need for police and fire than we ever have before. And we just keep using, general fund money for this stuff. You mentioned at the last meeting that the developer would pay all the upfront costs for this, right? And then this would be a reimbursement grant.
They're almost always reimbursement grants. In this case, yes, things are paid up front, and then if we get the grant, reimbursement occurs. Can I clarify one other thing as well? It's the state's capital budget that funds this, not the state's general fund. Just a minor point of clarification.
Okay. I heard different. It was my mistake.
I may have misspoken. My apologies.
So if developer A was to build an apartment building with 48 units and do all the hookups and everything, they obviously would have to pay all of those utility fees, which is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the hookups. We're not talking
connection
about park
fees.
impact fees. We're not talking about.
Correct. We're talking in this case, about sewer and water. In this case, we don't have a stormwater connection fee.
Okay.
Now, there are other eligible costs, some construction-related costs and some other stuff, but that's not what this ordinance is about. This ordinance is, it mentions a few, just some other general things that are eligible under the grant, but this ordinance is really necessary for the connection fee waiver option that the state allows for.
Okay. So the point I guess I'm trying to get at is the project is going to happen anyways, right? Whether or not they get, whoever's going to do this development gets that reimbursement, right? They're still going to be doing the project. And if they're banking on getting that reimbursement, they shouldn't be doing the project in the first place, right? Because it's not going to survive if they need that money and they're going to run out of money later. So I'm really struggling to really want to go through with this based on that simple fact.
Councilwoman Kesty?
I think that my fellow council members said it best, and Nick, Sarah, Alan, and I completely agree, and I'm struggling with it, and I wouldn't be for something like this.
Mayor, can I provide a point of clarification? So earlier, Councilmember Diamond was asking about the units that apply. There's a caveat to it. So these waivers apply to each affordable unit, yes. But if 25% or more of the units are affordable in a particular development, then they can apply to market rate. So there's a bit of a caveat to my answer.
So if somebody had 50 units and a quarter of them, or two-thirds of them they would then be discounted the entire lot, and the developer could, or the manager could charge full market price.
For the rest of the units, yes. The non-affordable required to be affordable units. And I think the state's intention in that is to partner with developers who are building at a larger scale, not just nonprofit developers, but private developers as well, to try to make these projects pencil in a way that allows more affordable units to be produced.
So additional affordable units are market units are offsetting the cost for the developer, so the developer is no longer paying for the development of market costs. The community is, or the state is as a whole.
The state, in the case of this grant program, would be reimbursing those fees, connection fees for the affordable units, and in this
And
case, for
the
the
other
rest of the
ones,
project.
which
Yes,
which
because
are-
I think the goal there is to get the whole project out of the ground, and with the intention that the affordable units would not occur but for the whole project. But another objective is obviously just to realize housing targets. But yeah, those would be market rate in all likelihood,
Okay.
depending on the situation.
Sure, thank you.
Councilman LaVaca?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So it is very expensive to build anywhere in Washington State. And so a developer building an area, if they've got, like Councilwoman Diamond was saying, 13 homes and 50, then all 50 are going to be able to get that impact fee, or not the connection fee reimbursement. And so for all of them. And that's going to reduce that price for the developer to build, encouraging them to build more, I guess, in general, overall. The money that's in there, it's in their capital expense, and does that money get expire every year? Like, they use it all, and then it's replenished, and then they use it all. So it's going out to the state agencies, probably mainly in King County and Pierce County. But anyways, regardless, it just goes to them, and they're going to run it all the way out because it's competitive, and then the next state, next month or year, it replenishes.
Yeah, it's a year-to-year situation for the state, and so if there's less funding available any given year, then the program will decrease in size. But it's also a one-time situation. It is a grant.
I wonder if we could possibly even table this for one of our study sessions to kind of look at what are we doing for, costs like this that come up. Would that even be a good
I'm going to
idea?
defer to Charlie, because I know that you're under.
Yeah, you can always defer conversation and policy decisions as the council's prerogative. There is a deadline for submitting a grant. We've been working on a grant to submit, and the deadline's next Tuesday. So if the council is inclined to take any action tonight, that would be helpful. But if you would like to continue the conversation, this is presented as a general ordinance that is long-term in nature, so that we could use this year after year if we continue to utilize the program, and it continues to exist. So, recommendation is if you could take action tonight, we'd appreciate it. But otherwise, we certainly are always willing to continue the conversation.
And would we need to wait a year to do it again?
Yeah.
How long would we need to wait to apply?
I'm pretty sure it's an annual program.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Councilman Koch?
So this is primarily an incentive for builders to consider building affordable housing, right? That's its main purpose, right?
Right.
Charlie?
Yes. Sorry, I'm nodding, but not answering. Yes.
Councilman LaVaca?
Well, just at the sheer amount of money and the fact that it's going to go away, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a tight timeline, though, by Tuesday, so it's either tonight or nothing. And I think if we're looking at, would it reduce the cost of housing in Sedro-Woolley? So right now, the median home cost, at least last year when I checked, $515,000 for a 2-bedroom, right? And so that was just a medium home cost. That does need to come down at some point, just because it's expensive for kids to move out of their house. And so they don't even move out of their house. They can't find an apartment or anything. So I would like to see us figure out a way to work with developers, get the price down. And also, if it's that much money and it's going, then maybe we look at capitalizing that.
So, Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. So what are the stipulations on the affordability, like, in general? What are we talking about here?
It's 25-year requirement. There are covenants and various things that need to be put on the property. That's kind of on the back end of this process. We'll follow whatever the state's requirements are, but there are restrictions that are placed on the property to ensure affordability.
And then market rate to AMI, what income bands are we looking at for what the state's requirement is for the commerce it looks like it's a Department of Commerce thing, so what are their stipulations on, who's the housing for? Is it for people at 60, 30?
The project we're looking at right now is 30. I'm just scanning to see, because I've been focused on that project, if it's a higher threshold than that. I believe it could be, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I just had,
Councilman Cock?
just real quick, I tend to agree that it'd be a shame to pass up this funding on a Tuesday deadline and then wait a year, because the problem is not going to get any better. Affordability is a crisis in this city. Thank you.
Okay, if, Councilwoman Kesty?
I think that if you're going to be making an impact on the city, you should be paying for it. And I'm not worried about building homes for new people. I'm worried about the people that are already here and being taxed out of their homes. So supporting programs for nonprofits or different builders so that they can make a bigger impact here and raise the cost of living and different things, I'm not for that.
All right, so if there are no more comments or questions, what is the council's pleasure here? Would you like to move forward with a motion, or?
Mayor, if I could really quick, it's 80%. 80% of AMI. I just want to make sure I got that information out.
I'd motion to table this and bring it to our next workshop. Or maybe not our next workshop, but a future workshop. I don't know if our next workshop's already banked up with other discussion items for like, you know, the comp plan and stuff like that. But if this is something that we're gonna do as a city ordinance and it's gonna be an ongoing future thing, you know, we need to have a plan and we need to iron this all out. That's just my 2 cents. So I'd make a motion to move it to a future workshop, probably before the end of the year.
So a motion has been made by Councilman Henderson to move this to a future workshop. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'd be willing to second that. I also, it's an ordinance that's setting a precedence, and I feel like, at least in the discussion, that there's a lot of still unanswered questions in how exactly this stuff is going to be handled. And we also are now creating a situation where development is no longer paying for development. I realize that it's being coined as not coming directly from our funds as a city, but it is coming out of our pocket in one way or another. And if we're creating an ordinance, we're setting a precedence. And I feel like we have, it seems to me like there's quite a few unanswered questions in regards to how things are going to be handled and settled. And it also becomes kind of problematic in that we do have very limited amount of space to develop in our city. And we do have people that might be willing to do 1 or 2 little units, and you're excluding them for bigger development projects. And I realize that there's claim to be need, and I'm not saying that that need does not exist, nor does that need not need to be addressed in some way. I do agree that we do need to find a way to do that. I just don't know that this is the answer, especially when the caveat in the whole thing is that if you have over 25%, all units are then covered, and those are at market price. So I realize there needs to be an incentive for a developer, but at the same point, they have to pay for this regardless to move forward. So we need to find something. I just don't believe that this is the answer right now without, I still have more questions from my perspective.
Councilman Cock?
Yeah, just quickly, to kind of repeat myself, I'm opposed to tabling it. This is an urgent problem that we need to deal with immediately. Pushing it off for another year to even consider the funds, I'm opposed to that.
And I have to say, I guess it's a little disappointing that maybe the other council members, you were unable to make the meeting last night, the housing meeting last night, because it became very clear that where we are at is really in an epidemic level. We just really do not have enough housing, and we need to be moving forward and providing. I keep thinking about our children. You know, right now, all of us are probably sitting comfortably in homes, but what about our children? With the way that the economy is going and the lack of jobs, you know, highly likely somebody's child at this table is not going to be able to afford anything and will probably be living in their car or in a van or on the street. And I think if we're going to move forward with this, we need to be thinking about the future, and not just the future about the what ifs, but we should be envisioning within our minds people that we know, families that we love, friends that we have, and would we do this for them? And really, that's who our citizens are. They're our family and friends, and would we do this for them? That is really the question here. This has very little impact on the city. It's not going to come out of the city's budget. This is only going to offer opportunities for people to build affordable housing so that possibly someday my child, your niece, your nephew, or your grandchild will have opportunity to have affordable housing. I just don't. I'm puzzled over the lack of not wanting to move forward with this. I think it's shameful for the city to not move forward with this. So that said, is there any other comments?
Madam Mayor, I have a comment. If I can't afford to live here, fifth generation, I am going to have to pick up and move. I'm going to have to find a job in another area and locate to where I can't afford to live. We have become too dependent on our government to fix our problems. And the old school way of thinking of hard work and doing what you need to do, 2 jobs instead of some of the avenues that are available and becoming dependent on them. I look that way. And yes, my daughter more than likely will be living at my home, and I will not be able to get rid of her because she can't move out. But if we need to pick up and move because we can't afford to live here like people did from California when it got to be too much, maybe we'll go to Montana. It's not the government's job to take care of everybody. At some point, we have to start taking care of ourselves.
And this grant offers us an opportunity to take care of ourselves. Councilman Lavaca.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I do see the need for housing for sure. I don't want to see a situation where, and I think we're already going to see it because we're below the vacancy rate and we have been for too long. So in order to fix this problem, we are going to probably see a lot of hurt beforehand. And that's just going to be the response because we followed California and then we said, hold my beer, I'll do better. Our comp plan for 2016 to 2036 called for 100% growth. Mount Vernon's comp plan called for 17% growth. So, I mean, Burlington is growing exponentially at this point, trying to combat a situation that they recognized is a severe issue. But, you know, even years ago, we knew this issue is coming, and that's where it is challenging because we're kind of pressed against a seam in Sedro-Woolley. And so there's so much inside of our areas that we really need to open up urban sprawl. We need to open up capabilities of doing more and look at it from an Olympia situation or our representatives. And that's a difficult conversation to have because we don't have any say. We can write our legislatives, and we do, and we can bring up conversations, and then we have people sitting on boards and bringing back forums, and it's great, but I mean, it's just not changing in Olympia. The mindset is tax more and then raise that up. So these great opportunities that we have before us right now, and when they're explained, like how much would, 100 units building out housing that, 25% is affordable, how much could they save and lower that price? It makes financial sense. But it's continuing down the same pathway. And I think that's what the council is concerned with, is that continued pathway forward and dependency on the government and hoping that they're going to fix it. And we had the largest tax increase in the Washington state's history, and that doesn't include local and county, which would equate to probably closer to $13.5 billion, not the 9.2 they're talking about. And we're looking at rates going up, as we talked about with stormwater, moving from 13 to 27. We're looking at the taxes on those products at 10.5 right now. In 2 years, hey, we got to raise the taxes a little bit. In 4 years, we've got to raise the taxes. Everything continues to go up on the citizens. So we got to hit this at Olympia, and we should come together and have a mind with a letter that us as a body can go back and say, we've got to tackle something together as a body. And I think that forum kind of hit that, and it's bringing that attention home. And so you kind of see the response from just the general public when it comes to this stuff is, hey, we're drawing more from tax money and we're not really dealing with the problem. So it doesn't seem to lower the cost.
Councilman Loy?
Yeah, I look at this way more simple. The question before us is the legislature put up some money for, I'm gonna just call it subsidizing, certain ways to subsidize in houses. So what's on the table is, do we do it or do we not do it? If we do it, somebody in Sedro-Woolley is gonna get a little bit advantage. They ain't gonna get rich off it. So if we don't do it, the money's just gonna go to somebody else in Freda or Wenatchee or something. The money's gonna get spent, and either we'll give the chance to somebody, a couple of people, and I'm not kidding, I'm talking a couple of people, get the opportunity to get some advantage, or just cut it off and nobody gets nothing. So, see, it's basically a yes or no question. All that other stuff has nothing to do with the subject at hand.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Henderson?
Oh, I was just waiting to vote. I mean, I could weigh in a little bit more if you want me to, but, I mean, I would have gone to the thing last night, but apparently you had to pre-register a long time in advance, so there wasn't enough time to sit down. But I have gone to a few of the other things, and it seems like this sense of urgency just keeps getting created over and over and over again with like very little information. Like when Ms. I'm blanking on the name, but when she came in and was talking about the last event that we had on June 6th, and it was a council and commissioner all combined meeting. We talked about one or two very quick things, and then it was, okay, this is what everybody wants. Now let's close the meeting, and everything just seemed kind of forced on us. So, you know, there was no real room for discussion and talking back and forth. So, to you know, get back to your point, Mayor Johnson, is that I wasn't there last night. I didn't hear the presentation that they had. We're talking about not using tax money that we have all paid into to reimburse development that needs to be paying for itself, right? And where's my reimbursement down the road when, you know, I get old and I have my house paid off, but you have all these other people coming in that, you know, my taxes went to help pay for where they're staying now. It's just a cycle that keeps perpetuating, and that's what we're seeing right now, and that's what a lot of this frustration is over, is that, well, we'll raise taxes, we'll give more money, and it's just, everything just keeps stacking up and up and up, and I don't think there's a lot of forward thinking to go with any of this. So if we want to talk about it more, I'm willing to talk about it more, and we put that motion forward and it was seconded, but, you know, to use the word shameful on wanting to, you know, have us talk a little bit more about it, I don't think that's the word I would use.
So any other comments, questions? If not, the motion that has been put forward by Henderson and Diamond is to move this topic, the CHIP grant, to a future workshop for discussion sometime in the future. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm going to, Councilman Loy, yes or no?
No.
Councilman Kesty?
No.
Councilwoman Lavaca?
No.
Councilman Koch?
So no means that we're tabling it, right?
No, it means that we're not going to move it forward.
Mayor, I believe the vote was to
But for-
table
the-
it,
the
so yes
motion-
would be to table it, wouldn't
The
it?
motion would be to move it to the future workshop for discussion. So yes, you want to move it forward to the future for a discussion, or no, you don't.
So I don't want to move it forward.
Okay.
So that's where I'm confused, because I would think a yes for tabling it would be tabling it, and a no would be not tabling it.
I know, and you don't want to table it.
No.
So, yeah,
Okay.
so you're right. Yeah, you're doing the right thing. Henderson?
Yes, to
Okay.
table it.
Okay. And Diamond?
Yes, I'd like to discuss this further and iron out questions.
And the motion does not pass. It's 4-2.
So, Madam Mayor, if I wanted to put a motion forward that just does not have this go forward, I don't want to see this, what would that look like?
You don't want to ever see the CHIP grant again?
No, yeah, that's correct.
So your motion is to,
Madam Mayor, I think Nikki has had this before, that we don't do motions in the negative.
Wait.
Nikki can probably say this better than me. She's
Correct. Correct, we don't do negative motions, so you would have to vote to approve the ordinance,
You would
and then
make
vote it down, if that's what you wanted to do.
okay.
a motion to approve the ordinance, and then a council member could vote.
So is there a motion to approve the ordinance? A motion to approve ordinance 210225, reimbursing affordable housing developers with the state CHIP grant revenues for applicable utility permitting fees and connection charges. Is there a motion to put it forward?
So I don't want to see the money just go to King County and Pierce County. I think that's what we'll end up seeing with this. So something to think of, if we don't do this ever again, if we don't even have the discussion, we're pretty much saying, okay, you guys got it.
So I have a question. Because you're looking to create an ordinance to move forward, so this exists in the future.
Yes,
For-
but
All opportunities to be moving forward with all of this, but it has to be a bigger,
it doesn't
project.
have to be a bigger ordinance. It's the way I wrote it. So we could try to amend it. The way it's written, Nick, you would have to advise us on that. We could also look at approving it and then having more discussion about it. And if the council did not want to continue with it, we could rescind it. That's always an option for the council. So there are options. Nothing's ever really forever, but the way this is written is to allow us to more efficiently use this program in the future. If we got grants, we would still come back to council, of course, for grant award and acceptance. That was really the council action I was focused on, not necessarily bringing you ordinance every year and then coming back with a grant acceptance on top of that if we got the grant. So trying to be more efficient with your time as well as
Yeah.
staff time.
my biggest concern in this is the caveat that's thrown into this whole thing, in that you're now offsetting market price housing. It's no longer just affordable as well, and it's subsidized by the community as a whole. So it's not as if we've created our own city ordinance in order to work forward and organically come up with it. Now the state is saying that as a state, every member is subsidizing affordable housing projects as a whole, because any developer can do this. So they could have, one project as an example could be $1 million plus in offset costs, and maybe 25% of that is affordable. That's the biggest struggle for me, is that, yes, we want to help with affordable housing and stuff, but development should pay for development, and it shouldn't be put on the shoulders of all of the other taxpayers. And so that's where I'm coming from that
I might be able to
perspective.
help with that a little bit. The project we're looking at applying for right now is 30% AMI, and all the units are at that level, so they're all affordable. We can always put guardrails on a program like this. Just because the state allows us to apply for something doesn't mean that we would choose to do so, or that we necessarily intend to do so. We could certainly have follow-up conversation on that. We could even amend the ordinance in the future to provide more clarity, but I can tell you the Tuesday deadline, there are no other projects coming in. There's no way we're gonna do anything that has just 25% of the units being affordable. So there'd be plenty of time to talk about that between now and next year. So we could get there with the project we have and then amend this going forward if the council wanted to put some boundaries on it, provide some guidance.
I struggle, but I struggled last time with being a pass-through for grants as well. I really don't think that the city should be a pass-through for funding. I really struggle with all of that because we're becoming very dependent on grants and pass-throughs for development offsets, and that can get kind of shaky in contractual agreements. And if somebody's not up to their end, what is the recourse for the taxpayers in the city? So,
You brought that up last time, which was a valid concern and question, and Director Bullock and I were talking about it, and he said that for cities, and it's very true, for as long as I have been mayor, and even before that when I sat on city council, grants are really part of the way that cities make their ends meet, how they do the transportation, we pay the streets, we move forward with park projects and pathways and things like that. So grants are very typical for it.
right, grants are incredibly important, but the grants, when we're talking about grants for housing, also in the grants for housing, are they also going to then provide grants for the infrastructure, for the resources that then are needing to be increased and secured, right? Because if we put in a development, we then have additional resources that are necessary and they pull from. If you have a housing unit and you're going to, and you put, any housing unit actually, and statistically affordable housing, you're going to have more first responder calls. Statistics have proven that over the years. So how is that comes out of our general fund with no tax revenue increase in order to fund that. We then are going out to levy again, asking for our constituents and raising taxes for that. So it's like, it's just this never-ending cycle that we end up in. And it's not because I have zero interest in wanting to help. I want to see something done. We do need to do something. There is a need for that. Housing is completely out of control. Rent prices are out of control. I have a friend who's a single mom working 3 jobs with 2 girls, and she can barely afford her rent and got notice that it's going to be increased. She's, what is she going to do? She can't get a 4th job because there's not enough time in the day for that, right? But what kind of resources can we do to help? She surely doesn't want to see taxes go up to pay for all of this stuff. And what do you do? It's just this perpetuating cycle, and every action has multiple reactions. So I'm not against finding a solution for affordable housing by any means. I'm trying to piece together and figure out how this becomes sustainable, because it's not ultimately sustainable as a community. So, and being the pass-through becomes sticky, and then you've got 25-year covenants and all of the things going on here. So that was, part of why I wanted to have further discussion before we pass an ordinance. And right now, we're being pushed to pass an ordinance in order to push through a special project. And I think that puts extra pressure on council as a whole and no longer allows it to be an organic process, but more of a push. And that's just something I've never really been comfortable in, feeling like I'm pigeonholed in a corner, because it's definitely not where I think any of us up here want to be. I think we all want to help. We all do see a need. And I did attend the North Star Symposium, and I had pre-existing plans last night that I couldn't get out of. And so I was unable to make that meeting, but I have listened to that speaker, and I have talked to nonprofits on personal levels and talked to them about whether they actually agreed with everything that was being said at those at the symposium and what their actual personal needs were within their organization. And surprisingly, I had 2 entities tell me that they didn't believe that that was the actual problem. So they said, because at the end of the day, you still have to meet people where they are, because housing, they have done projects and provided housing and found out that they gave that housing away to a friend, and that person doesn't even live there anymore. And, so, I mean, you just get into complicated various situations. And so I mean, at the end of the day, this will move as the council sees fit. But at some point, it's got to dive into some deeper level to reduce costs. And reducing costs has got to come at the state level, because, but we've got to figure out what we can do as a whole in our city. This becomes a pass-through. But I do feel like we're being pigeonholed.
Just one comment. I think everybody's bringing up very legitimate points, and they are valid points. I do want to stress, though, that Councilman Loy actually summed it up nicely in that it's either a yes or a no. That's really what you're looking at here as a council, just to simplify it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to give an example. So Charlie, this comes out of the state capital budget, right?
It does. It's the state's capital budget, so long-term, well, you know that from the Western days, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the point I was going to make at Western, they have 2 budgets. One's operating, which when I started there almost 20 years ago, it was 50% tuition, 50% from the state. During the Great Recession, it shifted to 20% state, 80% tuition. So the kids were paying a lot more. It's one of the big reasons tuition went up so much. I think it's modified, but I said in a lot of trustees meetings as they talked about the capital budget is funded by, correct me if I'm wrong, long-term bonds. And those are extremely low interest. If you're going to, so Western would compete for higher education capital funding, like we want a new building, or we just want to fix the buildings we have. They have 100 buildings up there. A lot of them are old. And they would compete with the UW, Central, Eastern, Washington State. And then the state would say, okay, let's prioritize these. What is the most need? So it sounds like that's what this is. It's, they would say, okay, so does little Sedro-Woolley get it? Oh, maybe, maybe not. But you have to have an ordinance in place before we do it. And that money's, like I said, it's coming from long-term bonds that pay, like peanuts on a percentage. So they're very cheap. And I just, it just seems like a smart use of the money. Like Councilman Lavaca said, if we don't use it, somebody else will. Just bye-bye money. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I just had one more question. So why are we doing more and more pass-through? Like, why can't an agency just go straight to the Commerce, the Department of Commerce, and apply for this? I mean, isn't that the way it used to be? When we apply for grants and we heavily use them, it's because we're getting compensated for our expenditures, or we're trying to work out a balance sheet or propose a project. So I'm just curious, why are agencies not actually going straight to the Department of Commerce?
Yeah, they're not eligible applicants under the grant program the way it's set up.
So the state made a grant program that requires cities to create ordinances in order to fund the, do we know why they did that? Or I guess it doesn't matter, but.
Yeah, public utility districts are also eligible. I think counties are. I know counties are. I'm pretty sure those are the 3 entities that can apply.
Okay. All right, so do we have a motion to approve ordinance 210225? It's reimbursing affordable housing developers with the state CHIP grant revenues for applicable utility permitting fees and connection charges.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So all those in favor of moving the motion to approve ordinance 210225 forward, please signify by saying aye.
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 Sorry. Tongue-tied and twisted on this because I hate to see the money go away. So I would say aye.
Okay. And those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So we have 3-3. I'm sorry?
Motion fails in that case, yeah.
All right. But this is something that I think that there was a request to actually have more conversation about this. So at a future date, let's bring this forward and have that conversation. Okay. It is 8:33, and in doing my
sorry.
due diligence,
Point of order.
I'm sorry?
Point of order, if I could.
Yes?
So we had made a motion for that to go forward to a later date, and that motion got voted on and failed. And the motion to pass this just got failed. So I don't think we just get to go back and put it on a later thing like I had asked us to do in the first place, because that got voted down. So where does that leave us?
That's a good question. Nikki? do you
No,
have a-
it was actually, so we did our no's and our yeses in the opposite direction. But when people were asked, 4 did not want to move it to a future, and 3 and 2 did. So it was voted down. So,
Yeah. So I don't have an easy answer for you right now.
yeah.
Yeah, basically you had 2 motions that stalled out. So we'll have to check the council rules of order on that. But I don't have them in my memory.
Thank you, because I would like to see it
Yeah.
come forward again and have conversation.
I can put that under, like, just an update on
On
the
how we
council
can
rules of order
discuss
and
that.
the process, yeah, at the next administrator's.
I believe with Robert's rules, the majority vote could bring it back up as far as a vote can go, to vote again to bring it back up as far as.
I do believe, though, that it has to be led by somebody who voted against it. I think that's the way it works, isn't it? Yeah.
So, Madam Mayor, I voted against it. I'll
That's
make a
true.
motion
If
to.
it's a motion for
I'm sorry, Nikki?
reconsideration.
Madam Mayor, I voted against it. I'll make a motion to bring it back up
For reconsideration?
for reconsideration.
Okay, is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I would second that if I'm able.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilman Lavaca, second by Councilwoman Diamond to bring it back for reconsideration. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So that means we will bring it back. It's the opportunity to vote to bring it back for discussion.
Okay, and yes is for bringing it back?
Yep.
No.
You don't want to bring it back, okay? All right, and Councilwoman Diamond? Okay. Those opposed, I should say, those opposed?
I oppose.
Okay. Okay. So again, we stalled. It's 3-3.
We'll just move on.
Yes, we will. Yes, thank God. Anyway, doing my due diligence, it's 8:36. We are 36 minutes past our time of what we would normally adjourn at. I need a motion by somebody to move forward.
I'd motion to move forward with the rest of the agenda.
A second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. All right. So back under the consent agenda, we had item 4 that was pulled by Councilman Henderson. This is 2025214CN. It's the Children of the Valley. It's the 1590 service contract. Councilman Henderson, do you want to address that?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm getting the right page here. Just scroll back. Okay, so I reviewed this RFP, this RFP. And so looking at the description, I'm just trying to clarify within the 1590 funding for services what it can and can't cover, because I see hotel housing vouchers, that's one that we're allowed to spend on. Gift cards for food, I don't know if that's one that we're allowed to spend on, because that would fall under nutrition, and I already looked that up for some county stuff, and like that was a hard no for them.
Yeah, we can vet all that in our contract if we end up moving forward. We'll definitely make sure all the expenses are eligible.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then to the other point that we talked about earlier today, moving forward for the non-brick and mortar, the service related, and then the brick and mortar, non-service related. We're gonna have a discussion at a later date solidifying when, those RFPs would be due. So we don't just have multiple things hitting all year long.
Yeah, my recommendation is that we have ideally not, yes, all year long, maybe once a year process for bricks and mortar and operating, and find a way if we can to combine the different programs. So it's like one application to apply for 1406, 1590, or even opioids, and to try to consolidate all that. So we'd love to put some stuff together and bring that back to you. But I'd like to go there. We wanted to make sure we treated this particular applicant fairly. They came in through the RFP, but the way we've handled, and this is from the operating funds, from the 40%, the way we've handled all those others is they come and they present to council, and then you make a determination. So going forward, I'd recommend we have a more formal process that's also kind of open and announced to everybody all at once. So yes, we would bring that back to brief council.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion then, if I may.
Okay.
Okay, so I would make a motion to approve Subject 25-214-CN Children of the Valley 1590 service contract for $40,000.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Councilman Henderson, second by Councilwoman Diamond, to execute agreement 2025-214CN, a professional service contract involving the House Bill 1590 service funding with Children of the Valley for $40,000. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to new business, item number 1 that we had listed. Chief McElraith, you have, you're looking for a motion to authorize the execution of the contract for the body cams. Do you want to address this?
Yes, looking for, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, I'm looking for a motion to authorize this agreement. We have been with Axon body cams since 2018. We are nearing the end of our contract, so this is pretty normal for this to come up every 5 years. We are looking at an increase in costs, but we also have the necessity for it for liability and documentation of our interactions with the community. What we're looking at is an increase from roughly around $18,000 to $46,000. It is an extensive increase, but looking at all around, that is increasing. We have 5 years since we've had a steady rate of cost for 5 years, and I think that is the main difference, right? We got inflation, and we got a very reliable partner with Axon. I do believe it's the best for the services we provide for our documentation. Also added on there, when we did this contract in 2020, we did have, a $27,000 error. So if you were to add that was in our favor, add that into it, it'd be another $5,000, $6,000 a year that we didn't have to pay for over the last 5 years. So still an increase annually. What I look forward to do in the future is, I know this is an added cost to the budget, but what in the future is looking forward to these type of programs, adding this into the ER&R program so we don't have to discuss this anymore. Other than, hey, we have the money, we need to keep doing this. This is needed for our daily activities. And I skipped over, it's required pretty much by law. It's the only way we can comply by law. It became an unfunded mandate pretty much in 2021, where we need to record our interactions with suspects, especially in felony cases, to document that, hey, they're being read their Miranda rights, constitutional rights and such for those purposes. Do I have any questions regarding this?
Are there any questions for Chief? Go ahead, Councilman Cobb.
Yeah, first of all, yeah, I think we need all of this. I think it was on 60 Minutes, they interviewed the CEO of this company, Axon. It's an interesting company. They're also contracting with the Defense Department on drones. I mean, they're getting into a lot of areas. But one thing the CEO mentioned is that they have a new version of their software coming out for, you might want to watch this, for, you know, for the video coming into you that would be more helpful. So just something to keep in mind on that. But yeah, I think we need all of this, both the body cam, taser. I think non-lethal in certain circumstances is very important. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. So a two-part question, I guess, between this and the next ordinance, because I read through both of them.
Right.
And they kind of go hand in hand, obviously. So is this increase going to be included in budget amendment number 3, or is that going to be the one in November?
I'd have to double check to see, but we can get that answer for you.
Okay, and then we mentioned ER&R, which I'm fully in support of. I think this, tasers, radios.
Radios, yep.
Fire department's radios, we should put that all in ER&R and come up with a formula for our yearly contributions for that. But
Yeah, it totally makes sense to me. I'm adding this up, and as these continue to increase in price, it's going to be harder for us to budget otherwise without doing so.
yeah.
The only challenging part about putting it into ER&R is that these funds are just annual costs. So it costs, it costs $46,000 a year, basically every year, forever, with increased prices. So if you put these costs in ER&R, you're just going to be contributing. The police department budget will be contributing $46,000 every year, and ER&R is just going to pay $46,000 a year. So it may not be beneficial to add ongoing costs to the ER&R fund. Something like radios that we buy, I don't know how frequently, but if you don't buy, for example, radios for 10 years, you can put 10 years worth of savings into ER&R and then spend it all out of ER&R. But it's different if you have the same cost every single year for an item. So just something for us to consider.
But correct me if I'm wrong here, this is a 5-year contract, right?
Correct.
So we had $46,000 5 times, and that comes to $232,000.
We pay it annually. We don't pay it all at once.
I guess what you're saying is we're paying that just budgetary every year right now, so you'll be approving for that amount for the next 5 years. If we wanted to save more money, that might be beneficial, but I'll take her
That cost
perspective
is
on
going to
that.
go up over
Yes,
past
it is gonna go
2030.
up.
So if we could stab that as a line item into the police department's budget as ER&R radios, and then it's very visible to us, when we're going through approving. But I like that.
Okay.
No, I like the idea that Councilman Henderson put out for radios and everything else that you guys deal with, your uniforms, and just having an ER&R fund for all of that merchandise, so it's always being regenerated and saved up, and we can actually see it as that.
If there's no more questions or comments, do we have a motion to authorize Chief McElraith to execute,
I'll
sign?
make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So we do have a motion by Councilman Cox, seconded by Councilman Lavaca, to authorize Chief McElraith to execute, sign the 2025-215 CN 60-month body cam contract with Axion Enterprise in the amount of $232,429.65. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. And Chief, you are up again for the taser update.
Yeah, same thing, looking for a motion for approval of this agreement as well. In this case, we're kind of in the middle of this taser contract, but we're running out of tasers. And so basically, we don't have one to outfit our 2 officers. coming out, and then new hires. So we also want to think ahead too, as far as if we do get involved in a critical incident and they do decide to take our taser into evidence, we might not have that for a while. So that's just considering that. The increase over the next 3 years is $5,655 per month, so it increases a bit over those 3 years. But I believe we're going to go back down to our just maintenance costs as far as the networking on that after that.
I had a quick question.
Go ahead, Councilman Cobb.
Yeah, Chief, I guess I spoke too soon about non-lethal on the body cam, but there was this famous incident where, I don't know how experienced she was, but she was a police officer, and when she reached into a car, I think maybe it was Minnesota, to try to pull him out, and he sort of definitely attacked her. She reached for what she thought was her taser, and she shot him, and he died. I mean, how do you guys do training to try? I assume you do. And aren't they a different color too between everything?
Right. We do train, and we actually carry them on opposite sides of from our duty firearms, so we don't get those. Yeah. It doesn't. So that tries to avoid that from happening. We also train for not having both out at the same time.
Do you have the non-lethal bean bags too?
We do not have the bean bags. What we have is pepper ball launchers. We have those. Those are basically pepper ball and also impact, and we also have 40 millimeter impact rounds. Those are what we're generally going to now, just because they're really effective, and we're looking at getting some more deployed. We currently have 2 or 3. We're looking at 5, so we can have one in each of the patrol cars on shift and one at the office in case one accidentally gets taken home. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilman Henderson?
Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve subject 2025-216 CN Axion Enterprise Taser updated.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Henderson, second by Councilman Koch. For the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to the last item of the night, which is the Ordinance 2105 Community Center. This is a first read. And the recommendation in this is a motion to bring either no alcohol or alcohol permitted version of the ordinance back for the council for another read. Okay, and
Madam Mayor, I
Yes.
believe this is the first read because we actually did the read today during the safety meeting, right?
We discussed.
well,
We
with the
discussed
council,
it
we
on
didn't
the-
do it with the council.
We didn't do it at the council, so
Right.
we're not bringing it back to the council because it just went to the committee. So it's be the first time.
Yeah, we're just recommending council give us direction on which version of the ordinance to bring back, because there is 2 versions included in your packet tonight.
Go ahead, Councilman Henderson.
I want to see the alcohol one brought back, the alcohol permitted one brought back. That's just me.
Councilman Koch?
Yes, I already discussed this in the committee meeting. I want to see the non-alcohol. So anytime you have alcohol involved, you have problems. And I think it would be a strong response to the shooting at the community center. I don't know if alcohol was involved, but I just think alcohol causes problems, as we discussed in the meeting. Unlike a bar, where they're legally required to watch how much somebody drinks, or if they don't, they could lose their liquor license. Somebody at the community center could, over-serve, and then you got really intoxicated people spilling out into the park. I just think it's a bad idea, and I hope we go with the non-alcohol.
Okay, Councilman Lavaca?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I voiced my concerns earlier too with getting rid of the alcohol. I don't think refreshments are going to be a big issue. If we wanted to station a police officer, I would think one, and I would think that would probably be after a certain time period, like 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. I personally don't really feel like we should be making any changes with this community center action right now, because it seems like it's a response to just the shooting until after we catch or charge and convict the individuals that have done this. So that's my personal opinion. I think that it's, being open till 11, maybe that's a little late, and then it could help to have a police officer there at certain occasions, but I don't think it's a good response to what we've seen before. We've seen action out on the streets.
Okay. Councilman Loy?
Yeah, we had a pretty good discussion at the committee meeting where both sides looked pretty good, but I believe what I heard at the main council meeting tonight kind of sways me over to thinking that alcohol would be okay.
Okay. Okay. Councilwoman Kesty?
Thank you. So I have a couple of things that I just wanted to say for if you're going to be bringing this back on which one to go with. I absolutely am in favor of the alcohol. I think this knee-jerk reaction to what had happened is a sad thing, because we shouldn't punish everybody for this one particular incident. It's been open since, 1972? And a lot of people are able to enjoy it like adults and have a very lovely time. I don't like the part about charging $250 per hour for extra cops. I like that we have Tony there, and he does a really great job. And I am okay with the 10 o'clock closing time. I know that neighbors have come forward with that they would like that as well. But that's kind of where I don't want to charge, extra if they have, this is a community gathering space, and I don't want to hinder people or charge them extra for certain things. So that's kind of where I'm thinking when you bring it back.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Diamond?
I think that alcohol should be permitted, can be permitted, should the user intend to use it that way. I think if you do not allow for alcohol, you may lose options like various community events that have happened in there in the past and would continue to happen. A lot of people include, even a lot of times you'll go to an event and they'll have one raffle ticket or two raffle tickets. Somebody is going to have a single glass of wine or something of that sort, and it just I'm really unsure how taking alcohol away from it would actually increase the use of it. It wouldn't, I don't believe. In regards to the events, let's see, the city will retain a security deposit if alcohol is present. That's completely fine. Events with alcohol do not require a facility monitor, but the Sedro-Woolley Police Department will assign 2 security personnel. I think that there should be a time, if it's something after 8 o'clock or something after that time. There's some events that are at 4:30 and they'll be done by 7 and they're gonna go home, and it's not something that they would need to be there for, nor do I believe that we have the capacity in our police department to be standing there monitoring it. I don't know that for a fact, but from what I've been hearing about where we sit with our staffing and the amount of time and energy, I don't know that that would be a great use of time and energy. I do agree that, and with a minimum of 4 hours and $1,000, I do understand that we need to have a minimum time. $1,000 is a pretty hefty hit for an event that's maybe an hour or two, and you may be having limited resources as well for some of the nonprofits and other organizations that use it. And then I do agree and have no issue with revising the end time to be 10 p.m. I've also had some community members and people around that neighborhood that have complained about noise complaints or cars coming and going at later hours. And so adjusting that to 10 p.m. Is no issue. I think it would be completely fine, and I don't think that would impact the business or the revenue that the rental would create.
And I'm going to give Chief McElwraith and Lieutenant Sorsdahl an opportunity to address this. I know this has been.
First of all, alcohol is one of the things that we have experience with out there. Knowing that alcohol can be an issue at times, it's not all parties, but I think at some point we need to be impartial. So you guys got a choice as far as what you want to do as far as either side. Going down that list, the manpower, if there is alcohol, that's one thing we want to kind of see back, but not only by Sedro-Woolley police officers. And we can't really do, if it is Sedro-Woolley police officers, we can't really do, we have a 4-hour minimum if we bring somebody in anyway. So that's going to be pretty much the cost, and it's going to be about the cost of hiring outside. And we're not looking for security officers, we're looking for off-duty police officers. So that's kind of where that price is at. That's what we'd be hiring and looking for. Those are the kind of things that we were looking at. We all agree at 10 p.m. I like that. And I don't know, is there also a change in the fees associated to the community center, or is that something different?
Mm-hmm.
We do have fee changes to the community center included in there as well.
I was going to mention, because I have it up, that we shouldn't tie the two together. The fee increase with this change, the fee increases should be dealt with separately. Seems like we're...
And they would be, we just wanted to present that along with the items. We will be doing an update to the master fee schedule in the next couple of meetings, so it would be included on there. So it would be a resolution to update the master fee schedule, and anything related to that would get discussed in 2 readings with a resolution. Mayor, I did have one thing I wanted to make sure we hit on here. We didn't talk about this at the committee. It's kind of just a housekeeping cleanup item. In this municipal code section, it also speaks to the senior center. And one thing that's in the community center section that's not in the community, or that's not in the senior center section, is that no retail sales or other profit-making activities shall be permitted. So you can't run your business, you can't run a business activity out of the community center. And we just want to extend that language to the senior center as well.
I saw that. I meant to bring it up because I went to a yard sale at the senior center, so they can do their own stuff since they're a nonprofit, right?
We have not addressed this previously. With our old system, you didn't have to include what type of event you were holding whenever you made the reservation. So with this new system, you have to include what type of event you will be holding, so we can better monitor that you can't run profit-making activities out of any of these facilities.
But the senior center could still run their yard sale or whatever they called it, their nonprofit, right? I mean, they make money off it, but it's for nonprofit use.
Right. Like if you're an eligible nonprofit, you can do activities. But if you are not, we've had a couple businesses who want to do something in our community center that we have had to deny, that you can't run your general business out of the community center.
Is that a giving? Because I swear that maybe a long time ago the Gem Show used to be in there, and I think that's for profit, right?
I don't know the details about the Gem Show. I don't know what kind of
The
organization
mineral,
that is, but I would
have
assume.
gems and minerals, and you could buy them. And
Right. So in that case, they would not be allowed in the community center.
Okay. I wanted to give, I'm sorry, I just want to hear, Lieutenant Sorsdahl, did you want to address this? Because I called on both of you.
Yes,
Before we
and
move- before we
talking
move away
about
from it.
profit-making enterprises at the community center, I did want to point out that there are businesses that do offer space for public events, and there have been over time. So the community center is not the only place that this could occur. But in thinking of the community center, we do want to meet the community's expectations and the people who rent the community center's expectations that events that occur there will be safe. That we don't have unsafe things that are occurring there, and so we want to help to limit the circumstances that lead to unsafe activity. So we know the later the hour we go into the night, the more likely something bad is to happen. Chief McElroy said at communities or the Public Safety Committee meeting, nothing good happens after midnight, right? So just that kind of idea of the later in the night we go, the more likely that something bad happens. And also having alcohol, it inhibits people's ability to regulate emotions, regulate tempers when tempers flare. And we find with these events at the community center, often with the parties, the capacity is, Kelly, is at 325 people. It's a large.
I think it's like 275 about. Yeah,
Okay,
something like that.
so it's a very large amount of people that can be there. And often it's such a large amount of people that we find that it's spilling into the parking lots, spilling into the splash pad. It can attract unwanted guests or uninvited guests, and often that's when we see friction. And we're not just speaking about the event that happened this summer, but events over, I've worked here, I don't know, almost 20 years. The events that we've seen occur over the last few decades. I would say. And then also with regard to just providing officers there as security, I believe that is in the current language now. However, we have not been able to staff that. And so often we are taking the deposit for that and then we are returning it back to the renter because we are unable to provide officers for that. Also, Nikki can chime in if I'm not stating this correctly, but we would be unable to provide officers without charging a fee. We are, we do appreciate that council is mindful of the costs that are charged to the citizens and they want to keep costs low, but we would be unable to give officers time for a private event without covering that cost. And like the chief mentioned, contractually they do have an hourly minimum for overtime, so we couldn't cherry pick and go, oh, we're just going to want you for an hour or so. We would need to pay them for a minimum of 4 hours. And so the fee that is added into here would be to help pay for off-duty officers that could augment our staffing, because it wouldn't be something that we would be able, in all likelihood, to cover on our own.
Can I ask you a quick follow-up? So, but that same per hour fee, would it be different if we brought in off-duty police from Burlington or Mount Vernon?
No, it's going to be relatively the same.
Okay. All right, so Councilman LaVaca.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to touch base on tying everything together with the fees, because it looks like we're increasing them about $25 or $20, and so it seems like that probably would be a different subject line than what we're looking at for the community center. The community center, I believe, with the intent of this is right now no further reservations can take place because there was a shooting. And we haven't caught the person yet, so we don't know if they were even drinking. We don't know if anything of that. But then we tied in the fees, we tied in, a couple other things, and we're just kind of raising those rates before we, if it's about the safety, we should really address that, and then we should address a little bit when time allows what happened. But then, I would venture to say, yeah, it's a community center. Refreshments are nice, and for people if they have that opportunity.
Okay. Councilwoman Kesty?
Thank you. Oh, mercy, I should have written it down. But that brought up a second question that I have, so maybe the other one will come back. But if we, while this goes through, and how much longer do you perceive that the community center will be closed if we don't get these things buttoned up?
The community center is currently open.
Well, I mean, two new reservations.
Right. We didn't want to, if council wants to make any changes to community center policies and procedures, we didn't want new contracts to go out. So essentially, whenever someone requests to reserve the community center and then the city approves it, both us and the person reserving, we've basically entered into a contract because there's a long list of, permissible use, a long list of things. So if the council decides to make changes, we don't want to have to go to somebody who just reserved and
Right.
ask them to change. If we took on new reservations, or if we changed the time to 10 p.m. instead of midnight on the weekends, we wouldn't want to have to go back to someone and say, we both agreed to midnight, but now we're changing it to 10 o'clock. We also didn't want to have events booked out so far in advance that, someone who booked a reservation in June, 364 days in advance, they can stay open till midnight because they made that reservation so far in advance. But people in January, February, March, April, May, none of them could. So we just wanted to limit that possibility of any unfairness, any miscommunications about what changes apply to what people.
Right.
That was the primary driver of that.
So, because I'm fine with how it is now, how it's written and everything like that, unless you wanted to close at 10 o'clock. But what's your ETA? I mean, I get why you're doing it, but when do you want to see this buttoned up so we can get it opened back up for people for birthday parties and whatever's going on? Deaths? What's your ETA to button this up?
Whenever council, has a decision on what way they want to go with it.
So if we made a motion right now to keep things as is, but change the time to 10 o'clock, you could open it back up?
That's up to the mayor, but we could.
Councilwoman Diamond?
Oh, thank you for clarifying the costs and time and all of that stuff. Sometimes things get put in front of us as council, and we are not fully aware of how it's all been handled in the past. And we surely don't want to make any decisions and have issues come up in the future being unaware of how it's been handled. So thank you for that. It makes perfect sense to me, for the employment aspect of all of that and time and sensitivity of that. One of my other questions, it was mentioned that there's no business activities to be done in there. There's a lot of fun nonprofits that hold fundraisers in there. Would that be considered a business activity? Because for them, they are generating revenue to fund their services or their.
Yeah, just to further quote the code, it says, which wasn't included in this summary, unless they are carried out by a nonprofit organization.
Okay, perfect. I completely understand, like a pop-up market or something that would go in there that would be profitable for all the I understand that not being accepted. I just want to make sure that we don't, for some reason, isolate nonprofits and being able to come in there and hold their community events for people and being able to make what they need in order to survive.
This would require no change at the community center, other than just more strictly implementing this requirement, knowing what events. It would just add it to the senior center, although we don't see that same activity requests at the senior center. But just want to make it consistent throughout the code for both of those facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Councilman Henderson?
Thanks. So going back to the alcohol-related one, would that be considered a special event if you're running the senior center and or the community center and you're having alcohol there?
As of tonight, no.
Okay.
The previous motion on the special events permits clarifies that if you have an approved event and reservation at the community center, it is not a special event, unless there was something, outside of normal that would like spill out onto the street or other areas. It would not be. And we did clarify in that previous ordinance that capacity requirements still apply. So knowing that, if the capacity is 250, I think, Chief? 325. Oh, 325. You still can't be above that amount of people in the facility.
That 325, is that minus the tables?
So this is something that Nathan and Jerry and Lowell over in building had to go back on, because I think back in 1972, there was a different number from what we've had over the length. The longest standing one that has been enforced is 325 total maximum occupancy, with utilizing the kitchen, the bathrooms, and all the rooms. As you start to add bigger tables and stuff in there, the occupancy obviously goes down, but the maximum that you could possibly have with, like I would call like stadium seating or whatever we've got in here, would be 325 max.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Henderson?
I just wanted to make sure we weren't having conflicting ordinances here where one says that, we don't have to pay for police overtime, and then this one says that we do. So that clarifies it for me. That's
Okay,
fine.
Councilman Kopp?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a minute, and I was reflecting on what Councilman Lavaka said. I'm not sure we rush ahead and change an ordinance. Maybe there's a way we can reopen it at 10, but still study it, because I think until we have no more knowledge, I would, maybe after an arrest and a little bit more investigation, what happened? What lessons are there to be learned from this incident, which was tragic? Somebody got killed, several people got hurt, and we don't publicly know what happened, and to go ahead and take one or the other seems to be premature. What if the shooter was drunk out of his mind and we're approving an alcohol use? I just think, waiting until we get more information about what happened to guide our thinking on the community center would be a good idea.
Madam Mayor?
May I just make one comment?
Yeah, please do.
So those discussions happened, and what we wanted to bring before you was information that was in our possession. I appreciate what you say, what you shared, Councilwoman Diamond, about not always having all the information. Is that the officers will tell you that the calls that they make to the community center almost always have had alcohol involved, correct? So this is a concern for them. I think they're seeing this as a safety issue. And as they shared, I got to tell you, I saw it as a safety issue as well. I think it was a wake-up call. The shooting was absolutely a wake-up call. But I think we need to do our due diligence and really think about this. What do we believe is the best steps to take to be sure that we're providing the best safety possible for the citizens? And so that's up for you all to decide. But we're bringing these to you, and the first motion right now really is just, do you want us to bring it forward with alcohol permitted or no alcohol at all? That's really what we're looking at here right now, is with safety in mind. And there are other venues out there where alcohol could be included. So that's something to think about too. But, we've heard good arguments on either side. So it'll really be up to you. But I don't know. I defer to the people who are on scene, on site, and that's our officers. And when I stepped in for the huddle that we do, the police huddle that we do on Tuesday mornings, without a shadow of a doubt, all of them said, you know, if we could enjoy activities there without alcohol, that would be their preference. So we're bringing this for you, before you, with safety in mind and working with people who are actually working with the individuals who are there at those activities. So that's what this is about. Yeah.
Madam Mayor.
Thank
If I may, I understand it's frustrating that there isn't more information that can be shared about the event that occurred at the community center. And really this conversation, we don't need to know what happened at that night. All we need to know is what happens when people consume alcohol, human nature, alcohol, and late nights. And does that lead to a more unsafe situation or not? And we believe that it does. As the mayor said, I can't think of a time that I have been there for a problem that wasn't alcohol related, except for the odd alarm activation or someone didn't get the door closed all the way. It's always been for alcohol related issues with the events that occur there. So really the shooting that occurred at the community center, it didn't, it started this conversation, but it didn't create the need for this conversation. The need has existed, and this created the opportunity to finally address it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for mentioning that too. One of the big things with safety is we are number one in the least safest state in the entire union, right? So, I mean, that's in the name of safety, our state is the least safest. Our police force has kept our community safest and creating it the number 2nd safest community in all of Washington state, which is still the least safest state in the union with the least amount of police force. So talking about like being able to staff it properly, we don't fund our police forces in our state. We don't take it very seriously, you know, but when we have situations come like this, it's almost like guns can be considered unsafe. Is it better to disarm all of our citizens? Because that's unsafe, right? I mean, it could do. I mean, if somebody wants to have the opportunity to drink down at the community center, I think bringing the time down to 10 limits how drunk they're going to get and how wild that party is going to get. If things start to go to 11, 12, the drinking increases, it starts to escalate. I wonder how many calls were called down there after the time of 9:30 or 10. And so that would be a big one right there. With the shooter, we don't know if he was even part of the thing. So we don't know. We don't know how many shooters. It could have been anybody from maybe the community or a distant land or a bypasser driving by, or a gang, or somebody who was there drunk, or somebody who was high, not even part of the party. We have no idea if alcohol was involved in that shooting at this point. Most likely, we're assuming it was because people were there and they were drinking and something went wrong, but we don't know. So at this point, I would say going with the 10 o'clock curfew, seeing how that does, and then continuing the conversation on a deeper dialect, and then addressing the fees, addressing the police issues with safety. All of that stuff should be happening outside of a response, which we had a shooting in July, and now over 2 months later, we've taken action not to allow it to be rented, and we're having this discussion until we make a decision before it can be reopened to be rented. So they are related in that way. And I would love to voice both the discussion on this one, the discussion on fees, and then closing it down to 10 right now and approving a motion just to close at 10. The motion before us, I believe, Mayor, if I'm correct, isn't just alcohol, it's also the cost of police, it's also the impact or the fees raising up. So it's not just alcohol or no alcohol, it's are you guys also doing fees? I went to an event for Carolyn Issick, Representative Carolyn Issick, when she was running, and there was alcohol at that event, I believe, and it was a fundraiser too. And it was, I thought it was in the community center, could have been at the senior center, but this is a few years ago. This is a number of years ago, probably 8 years ago or something. But you know, would a fundraiser for a politician constitute business, you know, that kind of stuff. So there's other discussions on the table that we'd like to look at, I think. And seeming how this is the first read, a workshop might be very good, or another discussion on it. But I think we can all agree upon 10 o'clock and then see about registering it open.
Mayor, may I make a clarification? The master fee schedule only gets updated by ordinance for the full master fee schedule. So we just wanted to provide a comprehensive look of what it would look like in the master fee schedule, that if council went with the route of allowing alcohol and then requiring security personnel, that we would then be required to include that in the update of the master fee schedule. So just in an attempt to be, to provide as much information as possible to council, we included that snippet of the master fee schedule, but that would be approved separately. You wouldn't want to do them too far apart, because this applies, you couldn't really apply it without the update to the master.
So it is related. Alcohol, fee increase, no alcohol, no fee increase possibly, although there may still be a fee increase in time. But nevertheless, there is not just whether we'll have alcohol or not, there will be a direct response at another session in relation to that, correct?
Right, so if you went the route of also requiring 2 security personnel, the city would need to charge people for those fees, so it would impact the master fee schedule.
Madam Mayor, can I make a motion right now to approve the current ordinance we have with just changing the time down to 10 o'clock?
No, we're not going to do that, simply for the reason that you said. I'm not going to allow that. And the reason has to do with what Diamond has said and what you have said, in that there are other factors that are involved. And I think it's really important for the council to have the opportunity to look at this. It's a dissection, and you need to look at each section, because this will be something that will impact for many years. I doubt that this will be brought forward. What was the last time it was brought forward, 72 or something like that? I can't remember. So I want the council to have the opportunity to look at each section, have that discussion, and as a unit, make a decision as to what they want to do. So
So the
only
community
motion,
center can't be rented out?
the only motion we're looking at tonight,
Existing reservation.
Well, I mean, but new reservations cannot take place until we've had time to dissect, which is fine, and maybe it takes a month or 2 months. But in response to the shooting, we shut down reservations, we're reevaluating this, and this could take a month or 2 months or 3 months longer. Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to get clarity on it.
I just wanted to say something. I think that when you go against, the police have clearly told us in the committee meeting that the times that create problems at the community center, alcohol was involved. We had a fatal shooting at the community center, and now we're considering saying, yeah, we'll allow alcohol. I just think it needs more discussion. I think it needs to be really looked at. And in terms of, I think we can move it up a little bit, but in terms of, an arrest and knowing more information, I still think and some will have an effect, at least on people's mind, is it safe there? So I would like more time to think about it, and I do think that we shouldn't have alcohol there, but if we do, considering the Rotary, I think it should be a consumption issue, not if you want to give away a bottle of wine. Thank you.
all right. Councilwoman Kesty?
Thank you. I 100% agree with Nick that I would have very much loved to see it go back into how it was, and that at 10 o'clock, I'm fine with that, so that we could reopen this. When the shooting I take separate, that's out, it doesn't make my decision towards this. And if you're having to keep it the way that you guys are, one or the other, I absolutely am in favor of alcohol, but I am not in favor of the other things that you've proposed with it, with the police and the different things. So, again, I would have seconded what you said, and I would have liked to have seen that, so I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Diamond?
I just was hoping that, however this is determined to be brought forward, that we do have a clarification on if alcohol is present in the building or parking lot, because there are wine baskets and wheelbarrows of beer and stuff like that that's auctioned off at the events. And so if you're not consuming the alcohol, but you do purchase, like, that will directly affect what these organizations can bring in and use. And obviously, that would be discussed with them, but we do need to clarify that for moving on in the future as to whether it's consumption or just the presence of it as a whole.
Lieutenant
And,
Sorsdahl?
and that point did come up in the Public Safety Committee meeting, and we would agree with that. We have no concern with a wine basket being given away or raffled off or something like that. Our safety concern would be focused around consumption. So I would agree with that, and I think we decided that would be worthwhile to update that language.
Sure. Thank you.
And Councilman Henderson?
I just have concerns about not being able to hire your own security as long as it's a reputable firm. We have security officers that guard the courtroom. I don't know if you guys do it here, but we do it in Burlington. We have a rent-a-cop sits out there, and that's good enough for the judge, right? They certainly do not cost $250 an hour.
Right.
So that's something we could look at too.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, that's armed security versus off-duty law enforcement. That would be our security, and that's what we prefer, so they could be able to take action if they needed to. Here's the other thing that was brought up in Tucker's response at public comment is, in the past, we did have this in code, and we had 2 officers, Sedro-Woolley officers, in that for specifically designed security. Now, we haven't been able to fulfill those obligations, and that's why it came out. Would there be a possibility to address it without being impartial? Is that being reviewed for the need for those types of weddings and such like that, events that may require additional security?
And the 250 would cover 2 security officers or 2 off-duty police officers, because our concern is with alcohol, the likelihood is you're going to be breaking up a fight, and that is really a 2 officer or a 2 security officer job.
So there's a lot of reputable events that happen there that there are no issues. I agree. But the thing is, for us, is we're trying to remain impartial and wonder if we can still actually do that or not.
Councilwoman Diamond? Oh, okay. Okay. So the motion before you, council, is a motion to bring no alcohol or to allow alcohol permitted version of the ordinance back to council for another read?
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilman Loy to bring the alcohol permitted version of the ordinance back to council for another read. Seconded by Councilman Henderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Madam Mayor, the alcohol provision does bring on all those fees, correct?
But can't we?
So we'll be discussing those fees at the next week.
This is
Okay.
coming back. We just
Okay.
needed to know what we needed to bring back, what version we needed to bring back. Do we need to bring it back where we have to have required security, or do we not need to have required security? That means, do we have to have alcohol, or are we not going to have alcohol? So yes, the only thing you're deciding tonight is, do you want the version that says yes to alcohol or the version that says no to alcohol?
But I like the alcohol, I just don't like what you have with it.
Well, then we can discuss
Okay,
that.
perfect.
We
I
can
kind
discuss
of wish
that.
we could have discussed that
So
tonight.
all those opposed,
Big night.
same sign.
I'm opposed.
Okay. So motion carries with 1 opposition, and that is Councilman Koch. Okay. All right. With that said, it is 9:30, and I just want to bring forth again the information item, the National Preparedness Month. It's got some really great information in there, given the natural disasters that have been happening. It's well worth a look. And with that, if there is no objection, we are adjourned.
Do you need me